We good? Sweet, dude. Yeah, so we're live on TikTok, so I think we can start now.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we're great. Jonah Stillman. Welcome to the Backpocket, brother.
Happy to be back.
Did you listen back to your first episode?
A few weeks ago, I listened to parts of it. I kind of skipped around, and it was fun to listen to, just because the dynamic was so different. Because I didn't know either one of you really.
Right. That was the first time we ever met you.
Yeah.
God, now look at us. We've come so far.
Look at me now.
Yeah, look at us. God. So I think. Wait, did you bring your CDC paper?
Oh my! I have a screenshot of it on my phone.
Can you before we start, because
you need to read me. You want me to read the disclaimer?
I need you to read the disclaimer for our listeners, because I don't want any flack for
people
us.
Are gonna be jumping on me.
Yeah, not you, right? Well, they might jump on you, but I think it's just beneficial for everybody to know that there is no coronavirus in the studio right now.
I think my mom needs to know more importantly.
Yeah,
fair enough.
All the moms.
Let me find it while we're talking. I gotta pull it up here.
Okay. This is a big deal, and I know
I'm almost there. Here we go.
Yeah, for the new listeners, I mean, they don't know maybe Jonah had coronavirus.
Right. We should start there.
Right.
Jonah
had the 21st case in Minnesota.
It's wild.
It's wild.
And while I find this, the craziest part is, like 10 days before I had it, my friend was driving me to the airport where I was going to London, which were where I'm 99.9% sure I got it. And we were having a conversation in the car. I was like, I wonder, and this was before like it really blew up, before like any of the sports organizations and leagues were closed, and we were having a conversation. I was like, I wonder if and when we're going to know somebody that has it. 10 days later, I'm like telling all my friends I have it. It was just a wild, like 2 weeks.
Well, I remember when you texted us and you were like, boys, you won't believe it, I have coronavirus.
and then you called me.
I called you immediately. I had to know. I didn't know what was going on. And then you sent out that tweet saying how much having coronavirus sucks.
Oh man.
And you blew up. You went viral. So congrats to you.
It was everywhere.
How many people did like all the news agencies and stuff
so
reach out to you?
That was the weirdest part. So like I tweeted it, and then like my general intention was just to have it shared amongst my friends. Like I figured it would get more engagement than a normal tweet, just because it's a big deal, like, especially in the time. Then it just kept growing and growing, and then more and more comments were coming in, different local news reporters. And then I tweeted again because there was like 15 requests. I'm like, not speaking to the media right now. Don't have anything else to say. And I was just so sick at the time. I just didn't want to talk to anybody. And then I've done a few since. I'm supposedly doing Dr. Oz later this week, which would be kind of cool. Little virtual conversation with Dr. Oz, which would be fun. That one I was excited about.
Yeah, Dr. Oz is a big plug, I think.
I'm still trying to find this.
You're also excited about this one.
Oh, obviously.
This
we've been talking about this before. We were going to do... I've been wanting to come back on it for a while now.
Right. Which you wanted to actually come on and just ask us questions.
Which I think still would be a good idea.
Which I think would be a great idea still, which I forgot to text you this earlier. I was like, maybe you should bring questions to then. What we'll do is we'll tease it at the end. It'll be like, oh, man, this would be a good podcast, but you ask us a couple of those questions, And then
I think
we'll turn it into another podcast.
We'll have that as well. I think we can... I just thread it throughout. I can come up with some good questions.
I think you can.
If we want to do a whole podcast, I'd want to like actually think about it. I think we could come up with some like fun like games too to do.
Right.
Like how well do you know each other? That type of thing. Like some fun stuff.
Right.
I mean, rumor has it you're pretty good at, thinking off the top of your head. You're a good public speaker.
Yeah, I have. You want me to read this letter?
Yep.
I found it. All right, it says,
Thank you, Jonah.
Dear Jonah Stillman, on March 13th, 2020, you were asked to restrict your activities, remain in isolation, monitor your health while remaining in communication with public health officials. We are writing to inform you that your public health monitoring was completed on March 23rd, 2020. Therefore, as of March 23rd, 2020, we are no longer asking you to restrict your activities and monitor your health and remain in communication with public health. There is no medical examination necessary to clear this individual to return to work by the CDC guidelines. Your cooperation during this time is greatly appreciated. All the best. Sincerely, Christian, and then some wild last name that I'm not going to attempt to read.
Right, but he's with the
from
CDC.
the Department of Health and the CDC, which was crazy because I was so new, so early on, and one of the first people. I was in the first 1,000 in the U.S., in the first 20 in Minnesota. So the Department of Health and the CDC, I had like 3 phone calls a day where they were checking because they wanted to see progression of symptoms in somebody young, and they were using that to like, what I'm assuming is seeing like new symptoms that come up. Like one of my first symptoms, I woke up with like a mild cold, like normally, but I had no sense of smell and taste, which is weird.
Immediate.
Like pretty much, like very, like it wasn't total right away. It was like I could tell that it was like, which made me think even more so it was just like a sinus infection or a cold just from traveling. And it was still like it wasn't even that big of a concern. When I was in Europe, it was heating up, and I got home right before all of it really blew up. But what was weird is like when it hit its peak, like so I got home from Europe on a Thursday. I have
March, like roughly. What do you
March
think?
8th or 9th probably. So like, because I got that, they asked me March 13th, which when I got it was a Saturday. So I got home on that Wednesday or Thursday, and I immediately went from the airport. My mom picked me up and went straight to the doctor's office to get tested because there was tests available at the time. I had been in so many exposed areas. They were like mildly concerned because Declan and I were in Thailand. I was also in South Korea. After that, I was in Australia, Singapore. I was in London for work. All of this travel. So yeah, you've been in a lot of areas, so let's test you.
Well, so if the coronavirus is not a thing and you have these symptoms, would you have gone?
No chance. That's what I've said is like I would have easily carried about my day-to-day life, but my dad has underlying health conditions. My grandparents, I was supposed to be spending the weekend with them, and my grandpa has one kidney, so I was like I shouldn't be around them, and I could get tested. So from the doctor's office from the airport straight to the doctor's office, got tested on that. I think it was a Thursday afternoon. And the only person I had interaction with was my mom. So me and my mom went back to her house. It was just the two of us because my sister was with my dad. My older sister has her own apartment. So we were quarantined together from Thursday to Saturday. Found out on Saturday I had it. And still then my symptoms were a little bit worse, like coldish symptoms, but nothing crazy. And then by Sunday afternoon, I had my first like fever. And by Monday midday, from Monday to Thursday afternoon, I had 103 fever consecutive that did not break with any... you're not supposed to take Advil. Tylenol did nothing. The worst body aches I've ever had in my life. Literally felt like I was hit by a truck and then ran over. Like I couldn't, like moving my toes, I could feel it in my neck. And at first I was convincing myself, oh, it's just from laying in bed. And then I was like, there's just no way. Like I've been on a 16-hour plane ride and the next day I move like I'm 10. Like I felt fine. And then I was so sick. And that was when for that whole week from like that Sunday to like 8 days later, I had zero. And I mean, absolutely zero sense of taste or smell. Wild. And that was one of the things.
What's that like? It's like your face numb to a sense?
So like it was almost like I've had it before, like if you've had a sinus infection or cold where like it's limited, but like if you were to like smell something pungent and you could like smell it, or like you put something on your tongue and you can taste like the saltiness of it, like it was. And that was a part of the reason I lost like 16 pounds in that week, because one, I had no sense of appetite because of normal sickness symptoms, but I think having that zero taste, like I've never experienced that, like it almost like triggered like a gag reflex. Like, cause it was like, I couldn't like differentiate between, I mean, if you were to give me the saltiest food and the sweetest food, I genuinely don't think I would have been able to tell. Like, it was just wild. So like that lasted forever. And when they would call me the CDC, they'd ask me new symptoms, continuing symptoms. And then like a week after I was, or like towards the end of like when I was really sick, was that you started seeing articles saying new symptoms in young, healthy, like people that have coronavirus is loss of taste and smell, which was like weird because I was like,
you were the one breaking that
like,
news.
and I was thinking in my head, like I had to have played some role in they're relaying that to somebody. We have this kid saying he has no, like I had never had it. It was like really a weird experience. Like I could not, and it was the even weirder part is my nose wasn't stuffy. Like I the whole time I had a little bit of like congestion, but like usually when you can't smell, it's because you're all plugged up. Like I tried the neti pot, fine, but like it was no matter what I did, I could not smell or taste, and it was wild.
Yeah, I wonder what like neuron or like thing that prevents that.
So, and here's the other thing that happened in all of it. One, I read that it's because it's getting the virus comes in through your eyes, nose, and mouth. Like ENT doctors are saying it's hacking. I don't know the terminology. I don't want to sound dumb, but
those
something,
holes.
Those holes,
those
something.
Those gates are open.
Yeah. So it's getting
holes.
something in there that's obviously impacting that. But the other thing that they think I might have had, which I don't know if all these symptoms were all of the coronavirus. They think that one of the doctors that was calling me said that there's something called, I think it's viremia, which is where if your body, something along the lines of when your body fights a new virus that it's never seen before, so coronavirus, for example, it can sometimes contract other viruses like pneumonia, strep, and all these other things. By naturally trying to fight it, it creates other viruses because it knows how to fight that virus. So it's like this weird that she was trying to explain it to me. I was like half paying attention because I was like half dead in my bed. But they think I could have also probably had part of pneumonia, strep throat, because my throat was on fire. It's like it was like every sickness, and I don't get sick very often ever. Like I haven't been like flu or strep any of that in years, like 2-3 years. I can't remember. Like I feel like the last time I was actually sick was like high school. But I had it. This is the most sick I've ever been for sure.
Wow.
Damn.
Like I was just knocked out.
I was gonna ask, and this could be just a stupid question, but like when you get coronavirus, there's a sense of being defeated. Like your mental state is like, fuck, like it's over type of thing. So,
Yeah.
like you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
How much of that sense of like you there's like the positive outlook on a sickness, and that helps you overcome things a little bit faster. Were you able to like maintain that, or do you think like you're the fact that you knew you had corona, you're like there was so much negative energy going through you that it made it last longer?
So I was the whole time when I first found out I had it on that Saturday, right? They called me, and like the feeling I can explain, like I knew before if I had it, all signs pointed to I'd be fine. I have no underlying health conditions. I consider myself very healthy. I'm active. I work out. I eat healthy. So like all of I'm a healthy person. So
You're feeling confident going into the game.
right,
with
like
a W.
before I even knew I had it or he was sick, I was like, if I got it, like I wasn't like on the team that it's a hoax, but I was like I knew it was very legit, but I was like, I'll be fine if I get it. So I thought,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
even,
I tweeted out, I'll square up on corona.
right
Before this thing got very serious.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but the feeling I had when they told me is like, I was talking to my dad on the phone like weeks ago now when I had it. It was like, you know the feeling when you pass a cop and you know you're speeding and your heart just like sinks, and like no matter what you do for like an hour, like you're just on edge. Like they tell me you're like, so they call me and like originally they said Thursday, and because it was so new, like you'll know by tomorrow like Friday afternoon. So then they don't call me, then they don't call me Saturday, and then finally Saturday afternoon they call me, and I just been waiting. They're like, and then they just got right to it. So they're like, hi, this is so and so from the Minnesota Department of Health. Is this Jonah Stillman? I'm like, yes. And then they go, do we have permission to record this call for tracking purposes? And I was like, oh shit, that can't be good. Like, that's it. So they say that, I'm like, yep. And it wasn't like they didn't butter me up. They were like, you did test positive for COVID-19. And I heard it, and it was just like, I froze. I was like, and I'm not joking. My initial, what I said to her, I was like, holy shit. And I was like, I'm sorry for swearing. I was like, wow, I just did not expect it. Because still at that time when I found out on Saturday, I was maybe 5 to 10% worse, but like still could have easily gone about day-to-day activities if none of this was going around. Like I could have worked out, would have been going to my office.
You would have tried to fight it like any other cold.
Like I was fine. Like I would have just taken like some Dayquil, some NyQuil, and I probably like thought I would have been fine. Little did I know what was coming, but I mean, it was shocking. And then that call led to like, it was pretty much like an hour and 30-minute call. I like called my mom into it because I knew if I didn't, she would have repeat all these questions. I just didn't want to deal with that. So
Brilliant.
Right. So I was like, can you hold? I'm going to add my mom to this call. I'm like,
So, dude, wow. I would have not have
Yeah.
thought of that. That
I
is
was
the
like-
savviest part of this whole story.
so, and they're asking me, then it was like interrogation, like where had I been, flight numbers, who had I had any interaction with people in Minnesota since I had been back, a bunch of stuff like that. And then they were just like, stay in your room and limit interaction with anybody. Who the only person who was in the house was my mom, who now I'm 19 days, like over 2 weeks away from when I found out I had it. And she has no symptoms, which is like, knock on wood, like she doesn't get anything. It would be a miracle. Like granted, we were very smart. Like I did not really interact with her when I was sick, but still you think you're in the same house as somebody. Like, so, I mean, but it was really crazy, but I don't know if I felt defeated. I was just like, it sucks. Like I'm just somebody that like total 180. Like I spent all of January, all of February, and then the first 2 weeks of March on the road. I flew 109,000 miles in less than 90 days. I was in Thailand. I was in Asia, all Europe, Australia, just working. And then I went to not leaving my bedroom for more than 6 minutes a day. Like I'd leave to go to the bathroom. I would shower and I'd just stay in my room. And that was like the hardest part for me because I'm somebody that's always on the go. I work out all the time. I see friends. I interact with people. I go networking. And it was almost just like, I was like, this is so weird. Like it was just a complete 180. So almost like the hardest part was me. I just felt, even though I knew I had to be resting and I was sick, I felt so unproductive just like sitting around. I'm not someone that can play hours of video games. I can maybe play an hour a day. I don't watch a lot of movies, TV. I mean, like I just felt like unproductive.
Yeah, you should write another book. I think is really what
Maybe.
what you should have done.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight.
I know you called your mom, but was the social impact of like, you know, it's one thing if you get coronavirus in 2040 and it's like nothing other than the flu. It's a whole other thing when it's in the midst of a pandemic.
And you're one of the first.
And
I
you're
was
one
the
of the first.
I put it as I was the first person that anyone I know knew that had one. So like anybody I know, like that I was the first person that they knew had coronavirus. Like,
right.
I was like,
and then on the flip side, though,
including
like,
you two, right? Like I think when I
Yeah.
called you, I was the first one.
Yeah.
You guys
I
were in
actually
Chicago.
I actually felt very special. You know, you actually made my day when you said that you had coronavirus because I was like, fuck, dude. The Backpocket knows a guy who has coronavirus.
So the social impact was I was on the fence and like I had a conversation after I figured out I had it. And it sounds so weird. I was like, do I tell anybody? Do I not tell anybody? Like I was like, I'm not going to try to hide it. There's no reason. Like this is going to hit home other people. And I've since now know other people that have had it that were studying abroad. I know of other people, very few, but I was like, I'm going to tell people. What started as me telling my very close friends saying, don't tell people, led to me getting Snapchat messages. Hey, I heard a rumor. I'm like, wow. So this word got out pretty much in 24 hours. And then I was like, I'm just going to start telling people that I would want that from me to tell them. So I started putting in different group chats. So I probably told, if I had to guess, like 100 people, like of my friends and people I know, family. Mm-hmm. And then like a mixture of that and then the tweet, which got like it didn't get that. It has like 1.7 million impressions. Like everyone clicked on it. It was like everybody. Then it was like I think I got like probably 1,100 text messages. Hey, people, numbers I don't have, people I have, which is great. Like I felt loved, which was a cool. But the funny part is I would text people and then they'd say thank you. I would like either like if I was depending on how close I would like do the tap back thing where it just sends like the emphasizes the heart like on iMessage. Yeah. Do some of that. But then it was crazy. Like people like knew I was sick and then like I'd be like thanks so much for checking in, means a lot. And then they'd be like, can you share with me what your first symptoms were? I'm like, dude, I'm laying here sick. Like the last thing I want to keep talking about is being how sick I am. Like like give me something to do. Like
yeah, no, well, it was super funny too because we interacted maybe 3 or 4 times right before you went to London with Embrace North and Becky's comedy show. So when we kind of like put it on our Instagram too and the tweet and you made it public, I had a bunch of people reaching out to me like, do you think Jonah like had it at the Embrace North?
Oh, you probably that was the other side of it. I had people reaching out to like show support and I had other people like people from work-related events, my gym, like saying, hey, did you for sure get it when you were in London? Did you for sure? I just need to know. And like, I can't say for sure, but I mean, all signs, like the last international travel I had before London was Australia, which when I got back that Thursday and had like my first symptoms, which was on that morning, like my first symptoms were like, I had an early morning flight when I was like on the plane. I was like, I have a little bit of like a scratchy throat. I was like, figured it was just a mixture of not a lot of sleep because jet lag, moving time zones. And then by the time I got home, but the last trip international was Australia, and that would have been 16 days or 17 days from that symptom. So I was like, it would have been too long. I was with my dad and 2 other people. None of them had symptoms, and I stayed in the same hotel room as my dad in Australia. So like, I for sure got it. I spoke at an event in London that had 1,300 people at it. I didn't shake anyone's hands, but like I was on trains. I took a train from London to Birmingham. Like I for sure got it when I was there. So I was telling people like I'm very positive I got it while I was there. But yeah, people were reaching out like, are you sure you didn't have it? We interacted. I'm like, no, I'm not sure, but I'm fairly certain.
It's so it just blows my mind that how it has, as it's grown, the fear of it has escalated, and then on the flip side, like the jokes or the worry or the jokes have decreased, right?
Yeah.
And the worry has increased. But it's just weird how it's like I would say 90% or greater is fear-based.
Yeah. And I'm part of that. I think it's also, if you think about it, like it's interesting to look at it from like the perspective of what I've built my business around is studying our generation, is that it's really for the most part of Gen Z, the first crisis that we've lived through, that has a direct impact on us.
Yeah. What did I say to you? I said, no better person than the leader of our generation to contract.
You said, what a fearless leader you are.
Yeah, you're a fearless leader.
No, but seriously, I mean, like I have memories of, overhearing like lasting conversations around the recession, hearing my parents and grandparents again. I can remember my parents telling me about 9/11. I can remember some of those things, but this is the first thing that has a direct impact on me and my peers. Like, for example, it has a little bit of a less impact for the kids in college, I think, just because, they if they weren't working full time and they didn't get fired, I mean, colleges have moved online, but their day-to-day is drastically different, but they're able to continue with life right now. But for people that I know, like yourselves, myself, that are, working full time, it's the first real crisis that we've had to live through. And it's a fucking big one. Like this is unprecedented. It's come from, we were a month ago from hearing the leader of our country call it a hoax and this wasn't legit, to having government mandated lockdowns state by state. You heard Virginia announce that they're planning on theirs to go through June 13th. Like it's not a few weeks. Like we are like not even in the peak yet. It's pretty wild.
Restaurants having to lay off thousands of employees.
Yeah.
I work in marketing and losing clients because that's the first thing of budget cuts is they don't need to spend on marketing. They got to stick to their operations. We're losing clients. Like it's so real. And you're right. Like this is the first time that we're seeing this significant impact. And like Declan and I were sharing earlier last week of we're kind of in like almost a perfect situation, if you will. Like we're recent graduates enough in the industry where we have stable jobs, like the companies trust us as employees and they're more than likely going to keep us on board.
Yeah.
And we don't have family and kids, so we don't have to oversee anything.
100%.
So that aspect, like, we're on the pro side of it, and the health benefits of being 20-year-old, like, we can fight through the coronavirus. More than likely we will survive through it. But Deck, like you made the point with people going into retirement and the stock market and all the investments they had in there, like that shit is the most stressful thing that you try to like wrap your head around on it.
Right.
Anxiety is through the roof.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm reading the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay.
And one of his like premises is like it outliers is like the term that he has for people that have like extraordinary success, like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or any of these people. And what's funny is he has a whole chapter on this idea of success, and these outliers come from very specific certain periods in time because the opportunities to succeed was so great. So you look at a Bill Gates who was born in the 1950s, who was in this sort of class system, who then had the opportunity to go to school, and then boom, because he was the smartest in that niche, he was then able to create Microsoft. I'm now looking at this opportunity of coronavirus with all four of us in the room, Jack included, of we're not really affected by this, but everything else around us is changing like crazy. We already had to be innovative entrepreneurs, innovative this and that already. Like, what a phenomenal opportunity that we have, and how grateful we all should be that as much as this is affecting, like I said, the 95% of the world, we're sitting back like, man, this is kind of fun to watch and embrace and understand so that we can then turn and change for the future.
Right. And I'm kind of like on both sides of it. So there's like two ways that I look at it. Is that one, like literally specifically on coronavirus, I'm on the other side now. So like the specific risk for me is very low. All signs point to, I don't like the word immune, but like I won't get it again. It'd be very unlikely. No, not even
like
ever. It's
next
like
season.
Yeah, it'd be like very strange. Like if you had it and like we're sitting here, like, it would be very unlikely that I got it again. Like all signs point that there has been people that have done it, but it's happened to, but it's not likely at all. But on the other hand, like I agree with what you're saying is that it's like, you know, we don't have lasting impact for the most part, but like it's crazy to watch. Like I'm in what I would call like a people-focused business. Like my majority of my business is engagements, going around the world, speaking to different rooms, conferences. And on two things I've realized. One, the direct impact, like on a short, let's say I call short term, let's say 6 to 12 months, was between when I got sick and it started really blowing up and June, we've had like 29 events canceled, which is a huge deal. I mean, like every event, a lot of travel was booked, a lot of contracts had been signed, a lot of that stuff has happened. So like short term, it's a big impact, but on the long term side of things, it's even crazier because we were talking a little bit before, like I don't see how this ends. And to me, like I don't see a lot of things going back to what we would call as normal. So for example, I know that you both work out, I work out, and we work out at community gyms. Like you work out at Alter, is that what it is? Alter. I do CrossFit.
Which by the way, you should come.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to come to work out. So perfect example though. I work out at a CrossFit gym in Excelsior. I don't think that's something that's coming back for a long time. I don't think people will be in confined spaces sharing sweat, sharing equipment for a long time. I don't think concerts will be there for a long time. I don't think business conferences that I'm a part of will be a thing. I don't think large gatherings will be viewed as socially responsible for a long time. I'm not talking like...
Wait, real quick. So you think Bochella won't happen?
Probably not.
All right.
I mean, like, I would love it to happen. Like, realistically, like, maybe.
If it does happen,
I'm coming.
Okay. Oh,
yeah, I'm coming.
Okay.
But like my, and I don't mean that to be harsh, but like, I just look at it from like strategic conversations. Is like, I'm now looking at like completely pivoting a career, which has always been like being a speaker.
Really?
I mean, like in essence, I don't really have a choice, and I'll kind of come back to this in a minute, but like, I was never planning on being a public speaker for my whole life. It was never, I did it out of passion. I love the topic. I could ride the Gen Z wave. I could talk about it. And we're strategic. We're forefront thought leaders in the aspect we have cutting edge research. But like events won't gather the same. I really just don't think that.
For quite some time.
Right. Like, could you imagine, like now looking at like going to a Vikings game, 68,000 people in confined, separated by 6 inches of seats. Like I can't see myself in September doing that. Like it just seems like it would just be. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the lasting impact,
because of what I said earlier, like the fear, the straight up fear. Even if they come out tomorrow and say, "Hey, coronavirus is done. We figured out a vaccine X, Y, and Z."
Right.
There's still going to be a percentage of the population that's like, but I still don't want to get this.
Right.
Like,
So then put it in a different perspective. Say you're say you're Post Malone, you have a tour, you're starting in August as of now, and you keep it as is, you find out that 10 people had it and you spread it and it finds out, it puts him in a tough space. He's on the fence of, do I want to have these concerts because we have to try to do normal things, but I don't want to be responsible for continuing a global pandemic. So like, I think that it's from the business side of things, whether you're a sports organization, of mainstream musical artists, I think there's going to be like a lot longer lasting effect than people think. Like my friends are talking, do you think this is going to impact our summer? Do you think, like, one, unfortunately, yeah, it will. And two, like, I think it's going to change. I think we'll have a new normal, honestly.
Yeah, and then you go to like corporate America and all of their real estate and people coming to a location, and they're quickly realizing like how accessible you can actually operate with them from your living room.
Like public transportation, like the thought of getting on an airplane right now seems like so irresponsible. And granted, we're like approaching the peak of the pandemic. Even in like come September, if this is like you're saying slow down, talks about a vaccine, it just seems like it's going to be strange. I don't know if it's. Oh
yeah, sorry. Here, Andrew, can you fill me up too? Thanks.
It's just crazy. I don't consider myself like pessimistic. I'm like an intense realist, but like it's just like it's just freaky.
Dude, so real. You're so real. You've always been real. But you know what? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like Gen Z and our younger group of people have always been very in touch, or have always been the first purchasers for these concerts, for these events, for these things that are more so tangible, because we value that higher than
experience.
We value the experience. So knowing that, do you think our generation, specifically I would just loop in like younger millennials and Gen Z, like do you think that's going to be ultimately, those people are going to be like, if Boatella is happening, right? Do you think people are going to be like, ooh, like I might contract coronavirus, even though there's a vaccine, even though there's antibiotic, and even though it's the curve has been flattened?
Yeah, I don't even know necessarily. What I do think is that while we value experiences and we know that, I think that on the flip side of that, we're also by far the most digitally connected. So while this has had as big of an impact on many of our social lives as any other generation, you know, majority of Gen Z being in college, everyone's at home. We have every mainstay to stay connected, whether it be Zoom calls, group FaceTime, Xbox Live parties. Like we can hang out in our
Xbox Live parties. Like, I love that you bring that up.
It's serious though, because like it's a way to
thank you, Andrew,
share an experience per se in a new realm. So I don't know what the attitude will be, because I don't know what the timeline is, and no one does. So I think that like depending on.
It's. I think ultimately it's going to take just time, right?
Right,
like,
and
concerts won't sell out right away, but maybe in a couple years it'll ultimately come back. Like it's just a gradual type thing. But you brought up like Zoom and party chats and all these different things where we're all connected but virtually. What has been your kind of like experience with like maybe let's just say like Zoom or FaceTime? How's that been? Or do you think it's robust enough to kind of replace the tangible in-person interaction?
Well, I would say first from a tangible aspect, Zoom is so brilliantly built and run, like for what it's capable of having so many people on. Like I think the story of how Zoom started is like fascinating. I don't know if you know, like the guy that started Zoom, very loosely, I don't know the details, like it was just him, and he hired like between like, it's like 15 and 30 tech engineers and tech developers before he hired a single business operations person. So they just built the most flawless webcam service there is before they started, you know, bringing on business people to grow it. So like they were like, let's just build something phenomenal. And this was years ago now, but I think that like for me, like adapting it, granted, like I've been at home now for like, or was on quarantine for more than 2 weeks and very limited interaction. Like I don't go anywhere, like unless I have to, or I come here because I'm fine now.
And we're news media, so we have
we're essential, and you know,
right? But
you care about us. It's just say it.
It is what it is. I mean, but I think that for me, like
it is what it is.
But Zoom for me, like I've been using it. Like most of my business is not local. Like none of it. Like less than 5%. So conversations I have on a day-to-day basis are done through Zoom, other web platforms. But so it hasn't changed mine. I just have like every day. It's just like what's even in the fear question, and I think why people are so freaked out is it's also the only thing that is being talked about. Like anywhere you look, any radio channel, any TV, any news, any Twitter, any tweet, anything you talk and read about right now, listen to, watch is all about coronavirus. So I think it's just in the forefront of everyone's mind. So kind of going back to one of your other questions is when this first started happening, when we first started reading about it, when we were in Thailand, actually, is when like it was like starting to climb in China, and there was a conversation like we don't have to get home yet, but like I wonder if there's going to be trouble getting back. Like,
right.
And I remember thinking that like I wonder if this is just going to be like Ebola, where it was a huge deal. It didn't impact any Americans, so it happened, it went away, and no one talks about it anymore. And that was like my first thought, and then it started spreading, and I was like, now it's the complete opposite. So I think this fear is going to stick around for a while. Like I think that the idea of like even like shaking hands, like I just it seems like it'd be weird now, like to have
fins up, dude.
Yeah, fins up. That's what we did when I got. It's just I don't know. And it's just crazy. Like I'm so fascinated in almost like a weird way to see what happens.
Right. Well, I want to loop Jack in real quick because Jack is you're running a business that's very innovative and on the leading edge, right? But where Jack is working for an insurance, it's been around forever. It's boomer dominated, and they have their own problems and struggles. But it's very old. It's very classic corporate. So Jack, like, what has been like you're all working from home now. You're all quarantined. I get that, but like, what do you think in terms of your own business, your own culture moving forward? Like, how do you think that's even going to shake out?
Well, I think as far as like going to the office, like Andrew was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I think a lot of companies, not just the insurance industry, they're realizing like, oh, we can actually work remote completely and save a ton of money.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to become a lot more popular across all industries.
What's so funny though, actually, real quick, is like we talked about off air, like how like older people just have never heard of Zoom, don't know how to operate Zoom, don't know Zoom etiquette. Like if you join a Zoom chat, mute your mic unless you're talking. I don't want to hear your dog barking in the background, and I don't want to hear you typing because, as crazy as it sounds, ruins the conversation. All right, so let's just get that off the plate. But like, think about not growing up with technology, being 40, 50 plus, and then, being associated with it. You're not going to automatically think like, oh, like if I work from home and I bring my laptop home, that's the same as work. Like no one older has that mindset. Right. Like you go to work to do work. You don't stay at home and do work.
And that's the biggest. And then
would you say like that would be something?
I'm curious to get Jack, like, because you are, like you said, a very traditional industry by age and by operation standards. From my experience working with insurance agencies, accounting firms, is that they define if you're working by, are you sitting in your chair at your desk in the office? And would you agree with that? Like,
yeah, I would say so.
That's
my own personal
right, exactly. And like that's data shows that, and that's the biggest disconnect between, I would say, like the baby boomer generation, traditionalist part of the older end of Gen X, even, and predominantly Gen Z, maybe millennials as well. Is that you take the term like remote workers, for example, is like we did a study once. I can't remember where it was, part of LinkedIn. And like a large percentage of Gen Z didn't really know the technical definition of a remote worker because you're never really remote. Like I have as much resource to work from anywhere in the world as I did in my desk. We don't define work as a place, as kind of like what you were saying, is that a lot of the older generations would say, if you're not sitting at your desk, you're not working. Where I'm saying like, I might even be more productive at my house because I'm not being bothered. I can, put my nose down and work for a little bit. And that it's the biggest difference between like what you'd call a digital native, our generation, never known a world without constant connectivity, and an older generation, which is more like a digital pioneer. They've pioneered for all this technological advancement. They've seen the rise of the internet in the early 2000s. Millennials saw social media come into the workplace in 2010 even. Like, it's just drastically different, is that we've never known a world without it, so we don't see why it's a problem. And that's where those conversations, those, like you're saying, is that to us it's innate. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I get on a Zoom call. If I'm not talking, I mute my mic. Like, I just want to listen. It makes it more clear. Versus you get 30 people in a team meeting, half of which really didn't use Zoom before. It's chaos.
Yeah. And that's not to their fault.
No,
right?
It's not their fault. And that's kind of what I'm saying, is that this is, in one hand, impacting Gen Z very heavily. But on the other side, we know how to operate all these things flawlessly.
We're ready.
I get on a group FaceTime with 16 of my friends at 11 o'clock at night, and it's almost like somebody starts talking, everyone else shuts up and listens, and then somebody else talks. Versus like, we did this thing where we all, like, my whole family, my grandparents, my uncle, my aunt, and we were all on there, and I am not kidding you, it was like echoing ring. Like, my grandpa and grandma were both sitting next to each other. They both had Zoom open on their own phones. Like, obviously, if we're doing a Zoom call, we're all sharing a computer, and I could hear everything 4 times. It was just chaos, and it's And it's going to cause panic. And it's to your point, it's not to their fault, but it's causing huge disruption on top of the biggest disruption that many people have had in their lives.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, Jack, I want to question you again on this. Like, if I'm in insurance right now, if I'm hiring for insurance, and Jack, I want you to clarify or take this further, but like if I'm trying to hire young people in insurance or in an industry that's boomer dominated and they need young people, like I'm more than willing to say, hey, you can come into work if you want, but you can work remote 3 out of the 5 days a week, or do some sort of deal where it like instills the freedom in your employer. Jack, do you think that's like a possibility? Like, do you think you can do all of the work that you're doing right now remotely?
Totally. And not to like brag on my own company, but for the industry I'm in, I'm like at the biggest and best company. And
that's a sick brag, by the way. Everyone give them.
I mean, it's a fact. Like if you look at
Aeon
ratings and comparisons. But that being said, a bunch of my fellow workers and people my own age already were working remotely, and we had the infrastructure in place to make it the whole company
seamless,
able to do it. So it really wasn't a big issue for us at all. Other smaller companies, I can't really speak for them. I don't know.
Well, I'm curious. Like a good question I think to ask would be, maybe I'm asking you both, and it's a good conversation. Like, what would you say from like a personal side of thing, like has been your biggest realization during all of this from like a business perspective side of things, whether it's your personal work, financial planning, what has been like your biggest, like either realization, thing you've done well, or wish, or like something I don't know.
I've fallen into this structure in August, working remotely entirely. Like,
right.
No corporate building, me and one other guy working off of Zoom every single day. And seeing how my parents are handling the situation, friends and family handling this situation, I'm like, I've been gifted an opportunity to have like 6 months of work to hold myself accountable to operate this way as highly as I can. Because you can very easily fall into loops of lack of productivity, or loops of like depression, if you will, because you don't have the company culture to rally you behind and show the value of what you're actually doing. Like I have many times, I've shared this on the podcast so many times, of like sitting in my room by myself being like, this sucks. Like I hate what I'm doing because I'm by myself.
And I have the exact opposite, like same thing on a completely different realm. Like I'm traveling the world oftentimes by myself, and I have highs and lows. Like sometimes I'm on a plane going somewhere super cool, going to be a part of a super cool event. I'm like, God, this kind of sucks. Like I'm by myself, I'm lonely. And other times I'm like, I can't wait. It's the same, very different, but the same thought.
Right. And then the way you are able to escape that is finding the little things. And through these community casts that we've been able to share with Marnita's Table and co-produce, that's been
every Thursday, by the way.
Every Thursday.
Join us on Zoom every Thursday.
In Zoom, and you can hear how every single generation's handling Zoom.
Sick plug.
Yeah. And you can hear the common reiteration of what they're appreciating right now, and it's all the little things. Simple walks around the lake.
100%.
And reading, spending time with your kids, finally. You have like actual personal time to navigate through the system. And that's like the thing that blows me away, is like people don't need
it took
all
a pandemic to
right?
realize it.
They don't need all the glitz and glamour to actually feel good about themselves.
100%.
They need a walk. Like they need the sunset rising and their plants growing in their backyard. We asked the simple question during the community cast, what was something beautiful you saw today? And every single person said something in their backyard. I mean, granted, they only had the scope of their backyard.
Right.
But like
but still everyone had something.
They had something, but it was like something that illuminated them. It wasn't just your average backyard. It was like there was a really cool aspect to what they brought forth.
Yeah.
And that is something that's going to be interesting to see how that carries forward, right? Like, will people continue to show the value where the value actually belongs? Or are they going to march back into their structure and feel like that's where their comfort is? I don't know. And it's just cool that I have the opportunity to operate in this structure entirely. Like I am solo. I am Zoom oriented. I am out of my home.
You were working this lifestyle that we're living now before anybody else was, essentially. And it was a trending or grossing type of work life, right? Like it's an efficient way to work, but you've worked and kind of seen the ups and downs and the lulls and the highs and the benefits of all of it. But what's so interesting is like that can be the new norm if you want it to be.
Yes. And I want to say this, though. The thing that I lack the most, and I think it was Jack who brought this to the table when we were having dinner the other night, is the lack of physical touch. And you said this.
Dude, I haven't been touched by a human in like 23 days.
We gave you elbows, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on.
That's nothing. Your weenus has the least amount of
Yeah.
senses
And
on
it's
your
wild,
in your body.
like-
Fuck, man.
It's like I'm sitting in the house with my mom. It's like even still, like I'm like a hug. I just want to hug. I always want to hug my mom. Like if I hug my mom, I'm gonna give her the virus. Like,
We all want to hug our moms, dude.
yeah, seriously.
And we want to hug our grandmas, but we can't.
What's been
Well,
yours?
Let me just say
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
Well,
sorry,
this
go
is
ahead.
like the actual point was the
That's why I started talking. And you
why,
interrupted
why,
me.
why I even opened my mouth. Children not having the physical touch
Oh, yeah.
and the embracement
yeah.
with each other and with their parents and anyone around them, that is a long-term effect. That is something that you read all day long in books for the longest time of how if you don't show love to your kid, they have a sense of resentment towards you and like even as like an infant. And
No,
that-
for sure.
Right? So now you think about that.
You take
in
middle schoolers out of class. Like I have a sister that's in 6th grade. It's just wild to watch.
social development.
Yeah.
And even the sense of like
So interesting.
reward and gratification you get from a hug, no matter who it is.
Yeah.
That is something to see how people handle this a year and 2 from now. Like the fear still in it. Like, will they still be afraid to hug someone? Like when I see someone new that I haven't seen in maybe 6-7 months, will they want to come and embrace with a bro dab and like embrace
Yeah, and
everything?
it's so second nature. Like it's like you have to think not to do it. Like when you greeted me outside, I was like I had to tell myself not to dap
you
you.
literally
I
asked me, are you
was like, I don't want to touch you. Like even though I'm clear, like I was like I just don't.
No
it's
offense, but
it's it's the fear thing. It's not even fear to me. It's like I now feel responsible to like play my part. Like who knows? Maybe I don't need to go down that road, but it's crazy. It's what you're saying, though,
Right.
the fear thing.
Yeah.
And I guess it is fear. Now that I talk it through,
it is.
it's my fear that something that I could cause something. It's not even like
Yeah. What do we start this podcast with? You read a letter saying you don't have the thing that we're all fearing, and yet we're still showing up at each other's doors.
we should have just stopped every 7 minutes and I reread the letter for new listeners. Somebody skips through. It's like, please fast forward to 1424 to
Yeah,
hear
if
Jonah
you're-
plug his immunity letter.
Yeah, right. It's just like it's a liability plug at that point. But dude,
So what's your realization? I want to know what yours was. Or takeaway, whatever it is.
Man, I think the one thing that I realize is with this new norm, I guess it's more of it's a hope in
Yeah.
my mind is with this new added chunk of time in most people's lives, when the coronavirus is over, right? And even that's like a hot take that we
Air
don't
quotes.
know. Yeah, air quotes. When the coronavirus is over, will people continue to feed that same block of time that they had for themselves? So will fathers be still going on bike rides with their kids and still go, and will we all still take those daily walks, and will we still be spending that personal time, maybe journaling or trying to just look inward for an hour or meditate or whatever it is? Like, will we continue to do that when it's not something that we are using just to fill time?
Yeah.
Like, I'm hoping that people find value in those types of things in the time that we're in right now, not because we're in this weird era of coronavirus. I hope they see that there's a bigger value above the coronavirus and that they see that as a need regardless of what kind of era that we're in. So I'm interested in and willing to see how that kind of plays out. But on top of that, I'm also curious on, like, from a 6th grader's standpoint, if you're not going to school for this amount of time and you're learning,
And they're not going back. Nobody's going back to school this year. I'll make that hot take.
Yeah,
There's
nice.
just no way that people are going to be gathering in classrooms.
It's a lukewarm take.
You're not going to classes of 30 in middle school with 600 people by June 1st. There's
Bro,
no way.
I don't think so either.
No way.
Illinois was supposed to be back in school in the middle of April.
Right.
Pushed back to April 30th, but that's what my mom shared with me today. Today's April 1, and I'm assuming that's not happening, right? Like
It just can't. Like I can't see a world where there's no way. I have no science or any like you hear it's all it's talked about. Everything you hear is we're not even at the peak yet.
Right. But another thing that's just so interesting, like I hope that there's you brought up an idea that like, you know, our younger generation already is on our phones all the time, and we don't have a lot of like great social skills. Now you take out school, like now what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And it's like that's going to be a need that we're going to have to try and fulfill in a different way, and that's why great businesses come to life, because they're able to fulfill that social need in some aspect, right? But there's another part of me that's like, man, like we're having to rely on the technology that we didn't realize was already there.
Yeah. Which I think, in my mind, it kind of just took something that was like this idea that we're becoming way more digitally connected and dependent was something that like the world we're living in now was probably going to be like at way higher percentage of at-home working, Zoom calls, these things was probably something that had been mainstream in 8 to 12 years, even a little bit. Now it's just happening now. Like I think we've had the technology and the whereabouts to do it. I just think that something like this kicked everyone into gear and said, like, this is very likely our new normal for now and could be for forever. Or not even forever, just for the near
it could
future.
be the new normal if you choose it to be. Like, there's never.
But we might
be
not have a choice for a while. That's
for
what I'm
a
saying.
while, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're seeing all the industries trying to adapt to it. Like you mentioned the fitness places that we go to. They're
Online content. It's not the same, though. So, like, that's half the reason I go. And, like, I can get as good of a workout at a Lifetime than like theoretically at CrossFit, but the idea of being around other people that are there for that same hour they're there to work out, you know that, and you're talking, you're motivating each other is like part of the beauty of that is the community-based thing. Almost all of it in my eyes. Like I can the same equipment.
The only reason why I go to Alter is to work out with 30 other people.
Dude, I have gym equipment. I have nice gym equipment at my house. I am maybe a third as productive as when I go to a CrossFit gym in the hour that I work out there because you're not with other people. You know, there's just something about going somewhere to work out in my mind with other people that you know why they are there that is concerning me that we might lose that for a while. And this idea of just community-based businesses it's crazy. It's just wild.
Like how many businesses were based on community.
Right. And I think part of like some of my takeaways are that obviously like the loss of.
Oh yeah, what's your biggest realization? Sorry, we should ask the question back.
No, I think there's a couple of things that I've realized. I think like some of them would be like I have two sides of it. I have like the personal side and then like the business side of things. So like my personal one would be is like, and it sounds so cliche, is like you just don't realize how much human interaction you have until you have none of it. It sounds so obvious, but like I didn't appreciate traveling all around the world, being in front of other people, having dinners with thought leaders, sitting with very important business people, meeting people and talking to my plane partner on a 12-hour flight to Australia, striking up conversation, you know, and you just don't realize how much of that happens until you literally are in your room for 9 days with zero conversation unless it's coming from a phone. And we talk about how much we use our phones. We talk about how much connected we are. But at the end of the day, human interaction is so important in development of young people, in the happiness and, you know, just the productivity, all the things, going on walks, all that thing is really important. You don't realize you take it all for granted until it's really like forced upon you not to have it. And the other biggest takeaway I've had is from like a business side of things, especially as a young person and being a young entrepreneur, choosing not to go to college, taking a bunch of gambles at a young age, is from nearly every avenue you're approached with different strategies to be successful in life. You should divide up your assets, invest in this, money in the stock market, buy real estate, all this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, and this proves it, cash is king. I mean, like from a business side of things, your Amazon stocks might make you rich, but you can't buy a loaf of bread if you have no money. So I think like I've learned that like cash is still king and always will be king. The people that save properly and have liquid assets in their bank account are not freaking out right now compared to people that, whether they made a lot of money or a little money, if you invested all your money and you're banking on your retirement plan and you have no money in your bank, you're freaked out right now. And I've luckily been surrounded by people that have told me to healthily balance it. Keep money in your bank. It's you always hear, you're not making any money if it's sitting in the bank. You're not making any money if it's just sitting there. You got to invest. But at the end of the day, when your job's taken away from you, you can't go out, you can't make money. It's hard to find a hustle, all these different things. Cash wins. I mean, like having money accessible, whether it's to survive on everyday essentials or to invest then in a down economy or have opportunities come forth, cash wins. And it's been the greatest example in my life right now to realize that. I've been told by mentors, my dad, people, is that it's okay to have money sitting in the bank. No matter how many people tell you that you're not making money, it's your money, it's sitting there, and you can access it whenever, for whatever, and for however long you need it for. So I think like from a tactical side of thing is like, cash is king. And I think a lot of people are finding that out the hard way right now.
Damn, dude. I didn't know you were going to go that way.
I
love it.
Well, I mean, like, I just had that thought. Like, I was just thinking, like, and I'm never one that ever talks about, even my closest friends don't know how much money I make, what my business is, all that. I don't share a lot of that because I don't think it's important to substance unless it's important for somebody to know, and then they obviously need to know. But I've saved money. So on one hand, I have a business right now that looks drastically different right now than it did 2 months ago. We were busy, and now we're developing. We have other sources of income, new projects that we're working on developing. But like, if I hadn't saved money and I'm 20 years old, even though I have a whole life ahead of me, I'd be panicking. Like, I'm not in college. I don't have a degree. I don't have any source of sturdy income right now, and I don't have any money saved. If it was all invested or spent on, non-liquid assets, it'd be scary. It really would be.
Yeah, it's insane.
With like, this whole podcast having like a Chicken Little vibe to it.
Yeah.
Chicken Little.
What a movie.
Yeah.
What a movie.
Good ref.
Thanks, man. I guess I want to ask the $1 million question. I mean, you had coronavirus. You're sitting here today talking with us about you could be pivoting business operations. Yeah. I want to ask the $1 million question. What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I have ups and downs in my day, like a fire question, but it's interesting because I'm like in a very unique position. One, on the hand of the coronavirus thing, like I'm past it, which is just weird to think about. But then from like a just everyday like mood and productivity things, is I'm just going back and forth. It's like I feel very lucky to be in the position I'm in and made the connections that I've had, have a very successful business in my mind. And then on the other hand, I work with my dad who, is hustling in his own right because, we have to make money and we have to find out new business strategies. And it's interesting. On one hand, it's like, this could be the most beneficial thing to happen in my life in 24 months if things play out and these new developments, we restructure our business, new opportunities. But it's just, I go up and down. It's on one hand, it's like, God, you can't help thinking if this wasn't happening, I certainly wouldn't be sitting in my room. I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be traveling somewhere. I had so many cool events happening all around the world. And it's hard not to go to that place of like anyone else is, you're just bummed. Like, it's like I would be visiting friends. Declan and I were going to go to Colorado and snowboard. I had a lot of exciting business things. We were growing, on track to, double for our third year in a row. It's just a lot of things like that. And then this landed on our lap. So on one hand, it's hard not to be disturbed on one hand, but I also see it as an opportunity to pivot, to change, to find new successes because I am young. I'm 20 years old. Like it's wild that
You're
is
so young.
I'm young.
We're all young.
Yeah.
But
yeah, right.
You're
He's
killing it.
he's 20
you know what?
and we're 24. Like, what the fuck's the difference?
I'll go ahead and say it in my top 3 concerns that this is directly going to impact my 21st birthday in June.
Ooh, wait. So we got to do something else now because you're going to go to Las Vegas and not going to Las Vegas. For
Well,
your
Las
21st
Vegas
birthday.
honestly was going to be an August thing because I have a few friends that are younger than me. We're going to wait till everyone does and we were going to run it. So Vegas isn't off the table.
Okay.
But I got to do that. But I'm thinking like,
let's be unique, dude.
It's going to be really upsetting if I'm sitting around the kitchen table with no social interaction on 21st birthday. I'll go ahead and say it. I'd be pretty upset about it.
We'll pitch a tent, call it a dome, and throw a party in there.
Oh man,
Jack, I want to know what's your biggest realization, dude. We've been going around the table. I feel like
kind of happy I asked that question.
Hey, you said it. Yeah, I'll say it, and you said it, dude. Good question.
Thank you. Feels
What's
good.
my biggest realization?
Yeah,
In
just
this.
just kind of going off the conversation we've had.
I would agree with Jonah wholeheartedly. Cash is king, baby. I've been saying it from day one.
Jackie Cash, dude.
That being said, though, on the opposite side of things, yeah, like people who are 65 right now and ready to retire and all their money is in the stock market, they're probably freaking out.
Yeah.
And I hate to sound selfish, but like in that regard, I'm pretty excited right now because I'm getting ready to invest a shit ton of money in the stock market. I'm waiting probably another week or so. But
what are you investing in, dude? What are you gonna invest in?
Probably buckets, like
buckets,
the
like
Dow
plastic buckets, little tykes,
ceramic buckets,
but
2 liters, 1 liter,
2-point buckets.
I think for people our age, investing right now is a great opportunity for our future.
Yeah, I want to invest in hemp and I want to invest in Delta Airlines.
So my biggest on the investment, on the conversation of investment, I made an investment before. It's empty. Don't worry.
Do
No
you need me-
spillage.
Do you need me to fill you up?
No, I'm good.
It's just water.
No, I'm drinking cold brew.
Oh,
Busy coffee.
Right.
Oh
Busy
yeah,
coffee.
Busy Coffee, huge fan.
Great friend of the program.
I'll say it. It's the only bottled cold brew I've had, and I'm a maybe a twice a day cold brew coffee drinker for 3 years, and I've wasted thousands of dollars on Starbucks, and now I'm Team Busy Cold Brew.
We're clipping that out, sending it to
Yeah,
the
well,
team.
Send it to him. Get in touch. Let's do something.
That's
No,
literally gonna happen.
in the conversation of investments, one of the things I invested in out of, a guy approached me that I know really well, I trust, my dad was on board, is I invested in weed delivery on the West Coast. And what's super interesting is,
Yeah.
one, cannabis in itself is a booming market, whether it's, dispensary-based, delivery-based, whether you want to include CBD, all of that market is going up because there's more social acceptance to just try it. And then you mix in this pandemic thing is you can't go to them, so people are getting it delivered to their door. So it has the potential to do really, really well, but it's also just fascinating to watch. I monitored a bunch of the stocks of my money that I have invested in. It's interesting to see who's doing well, who's not, and like the day change is insane.
Yeah. So, quick story. So when I left Thailand, I had on my way back, I had a full day in Taiwan,
I remember you shared the details, which sound insane.
which was nuts. I literally, I woke up at like 4 a.m. In Krabi, Thailand, flew to Bangkok, was in Bangkok all day with David.
Do you remember what I
Chang.
said to you, the last thing I said to you when you left Thailand?
I think it was
It was-
explicitive, I think.
Well, all I remember is that it was super early in the morning. There's 2 flights. I
By
left
the way,
later that
Jonah and
night.
I were roommates. in
We were
Thailand.
roommates for like just over 2 weeks straight, spent every day together.
And we got the MVP suite.
Got the suite
In
upgrade
Krabi.
in Krabi on the beach.
Yeah,
And
got our own
everybody,
pool.
some of the people left in the morning, but a lot of the evening people were waking up to say goodbye to Declan. I just remember like sleeping. It was our last day, and Declan, knowing I was going to see Declan again, Declan's alarm goes off at like 3:55 in the morning. It's ringing. He's not going to have. I just go, shut it the fuck off, Declan. And then he leaves, and that was the last thing I said to Declan before he left Thailand. And everybody else was like saying goodbye, hugging, crying, and I just went right back to bed.
Right, there are so many people that are crying. I think that's a great additive detail to throw in there for sure.
But Jonah had his head clear, and he was like, Declan
Right.
leaving? Irrelevant.
Yeah, irrelevant, dude. Get the fuck out
Not
of
to
my
mention
nice
the kid
place.
left half of his suitcase, which I brought home. Like he brought shoes, shirts, swimsuits. I mean, like,
Yeah, you did save me. And
Cleaning
RIP
up.
to the slides. The slides.
Yeah,
are
those
still
didn't
in
make it.
Krabi.
Yeah.
Did you just leave them in the room?
yeah, I wasn't gonna bring him.
Yeah,
I was
okay,
max
that's fair.
capacity.
That's fair. I hope someone is wearing those. It's being put to good use. But
Sorry, we're
anyways-
back to Taiwan.
Anyways, so I went from Krabi to Bangkok at like 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Then I was hanging out with David Chang, hanging out in Bangkok for a couple hours.
Get
Then I
excited for
fly-
David Chang's podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And then flipping the switch, going to Taiwan. I get into Taiwan. I, for some reason, purposely didn't book a hotel or a hostel, so I show up in
Power move.
Taipei, the main city in Taiwan, and I literally don't have any place to stay. I go to a couple different hostels. They're all full. I'm like, fuck, this is not panning out exactly how I wanted it to. I'm wandering the streets at midnight, and then on my way down from one of the closed hostels, I get into a elevator with this kid from Cali who's a Vietnamese kid. And, we were speaking English, obviously great bonding moment there for everyone involved. And we ended up getting beers, and ended up spending the night, like, hanging out with them until like 7 a.m. the next morning. Like, we went clubbing with the Taiwanese. Like, he had all these different connections. Luckily, I ended up finding a hotel, like, shortly after I met this kid. But what's so interesting about what you said about the weed delivery business, which is why I brought this up, which is, we start talking the next day. We actually we took edibles and then went to like an all you can eat like freaking hot pot place. And let me tell you, that was
so good.
the best experience of my life. Like, what better way to finish off a fucking trip? But
Hot pot.
hot pot, yeah.
it's like
So
a
it's
sort of
basically like all
clay
raw meat.
bowl, and you just throw it in. It's just sizzling, and you just throw a bunch of stuff in there. It's
Yeah, it's amazing.
so good.
Got a nice broth.
Not to mention,
Yeah,
it's like $2 for more food than you could ever eat. It's
Right.
just unbelievable.
So we're like sitting at this like super awesome hot pot place, and like the day prior, like it was just kind of like, okay, we're all getting drunk and smoking cigarettes together and whatever. Like that's one night of it. But then I actually got to like start talking to him about like, hey, what do you do? Like all these things. And so he works remote as a weed delivery. He owns a weed delivery business in California, and has like an entire employee base working for him. He's 21, And
It's amazing.
yeah, he just basically like he has no idea how to, or I shouldn't say that. He has every idea how to run a business. It's so impressive, but I was like, that's so fascinating that like I'm hanging out with someone right now that was just like probably a drug dealer in high school, but then was like, oh, wait a second, like
This could be legit.
this is weed's legalized right now. I'm 19, 20, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, wait, like I can now legally deliver this like I was before illegally.
Yeah.
Like, not to say that having a drug dealer is like the biggest like such a bad thing. Like, no, he just he pivoted his business legally, and now he literally makes like lawyer money
Yeah.
doing this.
And I think what the
He's in
realization
Japan right now, which is nuts.
and the realization I kind of just had in that point of you saying, you know, us being in Thailand, amazing trip, then you going to Taiwan and meeting these people and, you know, not knowing him, going out drinking, next day actually getting to know him is like the other impact that I realize is it's not from coronavirus, back to that topic actually, is not just the lack of social interaction. It's like the spontaneity side of thing. Like it's like going out with 5 friends to a bar, going out somewhere to an event, and then meeting
the girl of your dreams.
meeting the girl of your dreams or meeting new people that you're talking to. Hey, you want to come back to our place? We're going to hang out for a while. It's like any social interaction we're having right now is very controlled. It's only with people like in a circle that you know to some capacity you're going to FaceTime. It's like
In walking distance, if you will.
and I'm not going to meet somebody new right now. Like, where am I going to have a conversation with somebody? There's no spontaneity in life right now, which is like, I just had that realization was like, it's a lack of social interaction, but it's also a lack of like something new. Like there's no, it's almost like I'm just living on repeat right now. Like my days are just, I'm meshing together days. My sleep is so off. I've been somebody that wakes up naturally before 7 a.m. for years. I like didn't set an alarm on Sunday. I slept till like 11. I've never slept till past 10 in my life. It's just like everything just seems off. So it's like I'm just kind of like on repeat, and it's just nothing new.
Yeah, someone shared with me the other day of like the lack of predictability in the future is stressful on them. They can't handle not knowing what to to plan an event 3 weeks from now,
Yeah.
of going to meeting together with family and friends. But at the same time, the predictability is stressful and draining.
And I'm not somebody that likes really any aspect of predictability. So like, for example, like that's part of my like love for the idea of entrepreneurship and owning my own company is that one day I could be doing on a plane speaking, and the next day my business is closed because of a pandemic. I almost like the idea that I have to pivot and change versus like being in a predictable lifestyle, like where I know what I'm doing every day for the next 10 years and it's paycheck. I'm not somebody that thrives off of knowing what I'm going to be doing in 3 weeks. So on one hand, that's kind of like what I was saying. I go up and down with like my moods of like, it's hard not to be upset that a lot of things are on hold or canceled. But on the other hand, it's like, it's hard not to look at it as an opportunity. Like, what is life going to be like in 6 months? And in my mind, it's like, it's almost intriguing to have lack of predictability on that side. But on the day-to-day side of things, it's like, it's almost like I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do some sort of work, I'm going to go on a little bit of outside walk, I'll mix in a workout, and then I eat dinner, and I go to bed. Like, it's just like there's nothing, no substance right now. And that's what I struggle the most with is I lived a very substance-filled life, meeting new people, always in different rooms, talking to friends, FaceTiming people, which we can still do, but it's just like, it's very limited right now. And that's where I get like, not depressed, it's just like sad. It's just like, God, it's like, I just want to be able to go out and do things.
Yeah, we talked about for the longest time on this podcast from the moment we started, testing ourselves in new situations and like how it made us feel when we failed or even succeeded in these situations. Like no matter what it was, like we just loved being in new situations, making ourselves uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And not having that opportunity readily available all the time. That is the predictability aspect where it sucks. And then like the actual stuff that you can get mundane with, like people are starting to find value in because it's weird, right? There's that whole variation of it all.
Right. So you can only work so. What have you worked so much? Like, what have you guys been doing to stay busy? Like, what are you doing for fun, entertainment? Like, are you guys?
I'll be 100% with you. We're recording podcasts with each other.
Yeah. Well, which is awesome that you have that, right? Like, that's your outlet of. Are you like? Because to me, like, I can only do so much of one thing. Like, I'm not the type of person, like I said at the very beginning, I think is like, I can't play video games all day. Like, I can't watch TV all day. I just like, I need to change. So it's like, that's been my hardest thing is like being somebody I definitely ADHD, like was used to take ADHD meds in school to stay focused, and now I didn't because I realized it actually makes I'm more productive without it. I can think like, and I've figured out how to strategically do that.
You have ADHD?
Could you not tell?
No way.
You want to talk about baseball? No, but it's like I'm like bored.
Yeah.
Like it's what it is. It's just like.
But is there a certain aspect? Because like I had brought it up earlier of like my hope for people is during this time where they're like trying to fill the block of time or a void that they find some things that are fulfilling to them that they can actually hold on to and are personally
Right, which I've
beneficial.
found some things,
So
but
like
it's,
you play guitar and stuff.
like I
and that's
completely
cool.
taught myself how to play guitar in the last month on
That's
quarantine.
sick.
Like I had no musical knowledge, and I went from having literally zero musical ability to like being able to play the guitar fairly decently. Like, and I like doing it; it's fun. But once again, you can only play the guitar for so many hours a day.
Yeah. So
Like-
I feel like all of us are just kind of on
Right.
this constant process of like
Trying to find new things, but also
Right.
managing to stay productive. And it's like a balance of like wanting to work and find new things, but also knowing like you got to mix in something to keep you sane and excited and like happy. Like,
Right.
and I went on a bike ride by myself the other day. I've worked out outside, walked my dogs like numerous times a day. Like I just like, I don't know, just like simple things that like were used to maybe be like tedious. Like I would walk my dogs because I know they needed to walk. Now are like probably my favorite part of my day.
Mm-hmm.
Like go outside and just walk.
And take this for what it is. I've been loosely playing around with this idea, and it's not workshopped entirely. But when I talk with my friends and family about how they're bored and what they can do to actually fill that time, it's simple things like posting on social media or on the internet. That's
Yeah.
like the first things that
We're
come.
going to TikTok right now. Is that what this is going?
It can be anything. It can be LinkedIn. It can be TikTok. It literally can be anything. The biggest fear for all these people, or the biggest blockade for my mom or my brother or a friend to putting on there, is they don't want to ask the question to themselves about who you are and what you're putting out there. Like they have this idea of they should be putting out something that meets the standards of what they see. And that shows no gratification towards them, so they refuse to post on there. And the simple act of posting on social media, you can get very lost in it, and you can become a very lost person internally because you're meeting standards of everyone else.
you're just trying to like post something to get likes or engagement.
Yes, but if you're actually trying to be yourself and like truly being like reflecting whatever that takes, there is more reward in like internally reflecting and sharing that on there and getting one person to say, "Dude, that was sick."
Yeah.
That there's all these documentaries of likes kill you, you lose your self-confidence and all this stuff. Like, all right, yeah, you're lost already. Like there was something before you started posting that you were lost. Like if I told my younger brother to start posting on social media about how he's an avid swimmer and like what swimming has done to like help him find structure and like fulfillment in his day-to-day, he's refused to do it.
Right, but so I agree with you on the asset of that, but my pushback or like my argument would be like, why? Like, so what gain?
Okay.
Would his goal, and it's not even a disagreement, it's just like and from your side of things, would his goal, take your brother's swimming, for example, would his goal of posting that to be to get feedback on like a legitimate tactical thing like a swimming drill or just meet a new friend? What do you see the value of that being posted?
Yeah, and that's different for every person.
Right.
For me, I would find the value, and I chose to take 20 minutes to physically write out my thoughts and put it in a manner where someone could grasp it. And that in itself, no one takes the time to actually like get in there and to do work.
So put it from the other side of it. Let's say that you encourage doing that. Let's say somebody hears this, they take that advice, then they go to Facebook and it's not your brother. We'll just stick on to let's just say somebody, it's gaming. They love gaming. They're talking about their experience, what it's done for them socially, and they post 200 words on Facebook. Are you going to read it? Are you the type of person that would honestly read that? Because my pushback has always been people love putting out content, but no one loves consuming it. People love to think that they put out if it's a long written content that everyone's going to consume. But like my pushback always, and it's not even negative, is that how do you find something that that adds value to yourself, but is also easily consumable and brings equal value or enjoyment, entertainment from somebody else? And my continued argument for that is that's why TikTok has been so popular, especially recently, is that it's so easy to consume on the one aspect that it's very limited text, and it brought the fun back to social media. Social media has become this tedious, almost chore for a lot of people. Like they feel like they have to post those things on Facebook. They feel like they have to update Instagram audiences or tweet constantly. Versus TikTok is like you go on TikTok to strictly be entertained. There's no other purpose, and it's done that very well. It brought the fun back to social media. So I've always just said like you got to find that balance of pleasing yourself and finding equal value or entertainment for somebody else.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm loosely playing around with this idea,
right?
And in saying
that, and I hope you know I'm not like shooting it down.
No,
it's just like it's like how I look at it. Like it's like
because I sit there on TikTok an hour a day and I waste away an hour every single day.
Right, but it's
no,
maybe
we're studying TikTok.
Yeah, it's like you like to say that,
it's
right?
market research.
But and I post on TikTok and I wait for it to catch a stream to get 300 views, and if it doesn't, I feel bad about myself.
That's the biggest thing is that's where the hit of dopamine from getting likes and going viral and all that stuff. And that's always been my battle with social media is that I constantly am asking myself, I'll write out posts all the time, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, or anything, and I'll post and I'll ask myself, does anyone care? Like, am I posting this to make myself feel better about myself? Did I get featured in an article and I'm sharing this to actually share what's in it, or is it just so you know that I was featured? And I ask myself that all the time, and I oftentimes end up don't posting it because I don't have what I think is the right answer. Like, I don't have enough substance to bring value, and I'm just sharing something for personal gain. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I don't know if a lot of people think like that, but that's always been my battle on why I've never been huge into sharing things on social media. Like, I have a decent following on platforms, and I don't post nearly as much as I probably should and or other people in my situation would.
Mm-hmm. And then to that, I would say to those people that don't necessarily need that gratification or don't see the value in it, then document your shit though. Like, find a way to document your shit. Even it, like my brother, I'm going to go back to him. Like, he is just sitting watching Netflix and doing nothing in the sense of like, like there's no
personal productivity.
Yeah, and personal growth. Like, it's coming to a complete halt. He does not have work to, like, he works as a coach, so there's no coaching. He is not in swim practice, and he's not in school. So, like, what are you doing, brother? And I'm like, post on LinkedIn every day. See what you can do. And
that I should make, and I should underline that I don't discriminate at all. If you're producing substance and you're trying and you're genuinely, and I think the question I always encourage people to ask themselves is, what is the value add for somebody else? And it's not just for personal gain, but if it is just for personal gain, almost like admit that, like, you just get enjoyment out of posting it, like, and you feel, fulfilled by posting and even updating on your life. Today I did this. That's totally fine, but it's almost like own up and let that be your message. That, like, this is something I enjoy doing. Like,
there it is. Yeah. So I think at the root of everything we're saying right now,
does that make sense? Like, is that? Okay. I was
like, at the root of what I think what you both are talking about here is, like, you really got to, like, love what you're capturing or love what you're doing in order to want to share it. So, like, in your brother's sense, he's a junior, senior, probably loves swimming, but, like, that's not something that's going to be, and maybe he wants to be a coach someday, and maybe he wants to soar and actually invest in swimming. If that were the case, then I think he would be much more keen to your suggestion of, hey, start posting swimming videos. Hey, start doing this. Hey, start doing that. But it's, you post on social media and you share things because you want to share it. Like, when I create something, the first thing I want to do is show my friends because I want to know what they like to do. But it's because I love what I'm putting out there, regardless of it's a dumb TikTok or regardless of it's like a long post.
And see, that's kind of like the root of my point, is that if you get personal enjoyment out of it, then who is anyone
cares?
Who is anyone to tell you that you shouldn't or can't do it? Because it's totally fine. I think that's just, I've always had this, like, love-hate perspective and relationship with all social media, because I find I'll look at a story and be like, God, I hate that he posted that. It's just showing off this. But then I'll catch myself and I'm doing the same thing unintentionally. Like, I'll post that I was on somebody's boat. Like, what is, like, I didn't need it. Like,
what does that do?
Right. Yeah. I just have that, like, and I find myself being guilty of it, and I have to ask myself all the time, like, one, I'm not getting any enjoyment out of posting this, and who's gaining anything? And if it's neither of the two, then why did I post it? And that's kind of like,
if it's not gaining you, then why what are you doing? But I also think, to Andrew's point, like, the reason he's saying post on LinkedIn every day, the reason he's saying start something,
is you can find enjoyment.
You can find enjoyment, but
that I agree with for
sure.
But
think about if you have a tick. Think about if you have something that you like. You like guitars. You like selling this. You like doing that, and you just say, okay, I'm gonna share that with everybody. I'm gonna put my mind towards that thing that I really like to do. And because I like it, I'm going to share it, right? Mm-hmm. If the consistent process, Andrew and I have been doing this for 3 years, the consistent process of feeding that continuous loop of what you like to do, and then it ultimately turns into what you love to do.
Yeah.
That is the most personal, rewarding thing of all time. And I think
100%.
that's what you're getting at.
Yes, that at the root of it is what I'm getting at, because we are choosing to personally reflect on what we're doing and trying to find a way to articulate it out to a society.
Right.
Okay, so there's the win in what we're doing. We're going a step further and finding a way, like, what would others see? How do others see us when
Yeah.
we actually put that content out? That is what I love about what we do, is because we force ourselves to be ourselves and then share it in a way that people want to relate to it. Okay, so you can have that mindset, but you can also have the mindset of capturing it and containing it, like fucking William Shakespeare writing King Lear during the Black Plague. Like, he chose to sit down and write that because everyone else is closed off during society, and he writes this magnificent play. Like, he chose to reflect internally the whole time, and there's no mediums to share, but he is actually like spending time reflecting on himself. That is what I'm saying. Like, when someone says they're bored, you should have a moment or an instance of boredom where you're like, all right, now I have an opportunity to like actually dive into myself. If there's nothing left on the to-do list, if there's no other chores, you don't have to sit next to your kids and occupy them. That is where I get irritated when I like jump on a call with family and friends right now and they say I'm bored. I'm like, and then that first thing that comes to mind is post on fucking LinkedIn, because that's what I do.
Right, and my component on that is the idea of sharing and being in a society that encourages people to share. That's why I have been, and I've talked about it before, like the biggest component of Instagram hiding likes. Like, I think there's no value unless you're in the business side of something, you're an influencer, you make your correlation between likes directly correlates to your revenue. You get a certain amount of likes, you get bigger brand deals. For anybody, and I don't know how you would work around that, there's no reason to show likes, because that by nature encourages people to post more authentic posts, especially on a platform very visual like Instagram. I oftentimes will have a really cool picture that I want to post, and I won't, because I'm like, my audience doesn't want to see this. It's not going to get good engagement. And that's why I'm so hesitant to share things, is because like I personally get hung up on the who cares factor. I haven't posted on Instagram in over a month. Like, I think the last picture I posted was one from Thailand. Like, and it's just, I struggle with that because it's like, I'm a victim almost of like I have to appease to people and not share what I genuinely love.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I've been a component of, you know, trying to detach likes from the content and figuring out
Yeah. I think there's something there too, because, you know, the algorithms, everyone always
It's
says
insane.
like, hey,
It's getting-
find your niche, do your thing. I'm like watching, there's all these like different TikTok videos that come up on our For You page. Like, here's how you go viral on TikTok. Like, here's how you build a consistent following. Like, if you're posting workout videos on TikTok, like, your workout videos are going to do well on TikTok. If you start doing other things on your workout page on TikTok, it's not going to work. And I think that's, the riches are in the niches. Everyone always says that, and it's true for the most part. But like, why can't your niche just be like you? Why can't you just like, and it should be that
Right,
way.
so
But why can't we just look at it that way? Because think about, and like take TikTok out of it, but like think about your tweet the other day. Like,
yeah.
that tweet was interacted with for how long? A week?
Yeah, still
A week.
at least.
You posted you posted one thing for at one moment in time, and for a week it was remembered and engaged with. And
By
after
far
that,
the most engagement I've ever had.
and then after that, whatever impact you made in that 1 week is what lives on forever. So think about it in terms of Instagram. If you post a picture that doesn't get a lot of good engagement, sure, I understand that there's a lack of dopamine there that you did not get, but
And-
like, that was seen by X amount of people for probably 2 to 3 days.
And what was interesting is I just you reminded me. I told you to remind me of the interaction I had with a lady on a bike path yesterday.
oh yes,
And that
the lady
reminded
on
me.
the bag path.
Yeah. So I went for a bike by myself yesterday. I was getting out of my car. I was taking the bike out of my mom's Jeep, and I was standing there, and this lady comes by with the cutest dog, a Bernedoodle. It's like a Bernese Mountain Dog and a Labrador. The dog just like very graciously comes and interacts with me. I'm like petting the dog, and this lady's just like giving me this weird look, like kind of like staring at me, like almost like if somebody was like sizing me up. But like I could tell that like she either knew me from somewhere or had something. She's like, then she says, "Oh, you look so familiar." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Any ideas?" And she's like, "I don't know, your face. I've just seen your face before." And I'm sitting there like,
That fucking face.
I was just thinking in my head, I was like, I was like, I wasn't going to start throwing things out there like where she would have known. I was like, I don't know. Then she goes, "Oh, are you the Corona kid?" And I was like, oh my God. I was like, and she goes, I saw an article that had your picture in it in the Today Show online that was a reference to your tweet. So talk about impact of a tweet, that my genuine intentions, and when I talk about it was not for that tweet to go viral. My tweet was, I knew the shock factor that would come from my friends and the friends of my friends hearing that one of their close friends had coronavirus would at least encourage one person to stay home. And my goal is to do that for people I cared about and their friends, is like, yes, you got to stay home if you're having symptoms or until you're over it, all these different things. And that was my intention. And it showed because I wouldn't have posted if it wasn't. And then it worked because people were, a bunch of people replied, tons of engagement. And some lady saw me and said, I saw your article and I think it's good and so happy to see that you're healthy. And it was a great interaction. And that was like kind of like my experience of like genuine social posting. And that's why I don't know, I should post more, but I'm just always hesitant until I have a real genuine reason to do so.
I think it's interesting because...
But the algorithms, like what you're saying, it's like you almost have to beat them.
Right. And well...
Like from a strategy perspective...
So that's the thing, right? There's kind of like I kind of see it as like a flow chart or maybe like a hierarchy of like needs. So like for my perspective and what Andrew was touching on earlier, which is like when you post something, you should just genuinely love whatever the hell you're posting, right? And then once you get past that, once you're always just genuinely loving what you're posting, regardless of what you put out there, like you think that video is funny or you think that you just love that picture or whatever it is, like the second tier is always in my head, like, okay, well, how can I present this in the best way?
Is it going to get good engagement?
Is it going to get good engagement? So that's when you add the filters. That's when you chop the video the right way so that the first 3 seconds is the right way, or the caption.
Yeah, so knowing you guys are big into TikTok, which I think is very legitimate because it's growing. It's the most, right now, it's the most interactive and trending platform there is. Like everyone's talking about it. So from like a strategy perspective, like out of curiosity, well, first of all, I know you guys post a lot of things that aren't clips of podcasts. There's funny bits. Andrew just posted that one we were watching before. It was really good.
Blown up.
Do you how many clips of like actual podcast conversations do you have on there? Any?
One a week.
One a week. So that like look at that.
Strategy.
Same room.
Same room.
Living in the same room.
From a strategy perspective, like, are you listening to not even my pod, like this conversation right now specifically, but any of them? Are you like throughout it thinking like, oh, remember that in my head, that would be a good clip for TikTok? Like, are you?
100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like,
100%.
so what is that process in your head? Is it genuine? Like that was interesting, or like what's up with the times? What's gonna trend? Like a mixture of both.
Mixture of both.
You go down that chart like this is awesome, and I think, and you can kind of find that.
Yeah. Like I hear you talk, and I'm like, that is 15 seconds. I put some classical music behind it. That's inspirational. That fires me up. I know it will fire up.
And I know that being a business-minded person, that's the way you were thinking. That's kind of why I asked it. I was like, there's no way that they're just like watching it. Like they're thinking throughout this, like, where can we pull social content? And I don't, like I said, I don't even mean my interview specifically. Like when I tuned in, I watched Chang's, I was watching it live on Instagram. I was thinking, like, I was listening to this thing, like, even in my head, it's not my podcast. Like, oh, that'd be a great clip to warehouse, like, just to have, like, and that's how I think. I was like, it's interesting to like see that we almost align in the thing of it's like that mixture of I like it and I think it will perform well and get engagement, and it's like that culmination. It's almost like the Venn diagram.
It's the golden triangle, except it's only 2 points.
And where we've been fortunate, and we're going to continue to dive down this everlasting thing of brands not looking at us fully because of how we're portraying it, but like we can do whatever the fuck we want, in the sense of like we hear something and we push it out there because we love it and we know that like that was genuinely yourself, and and that's what performs well. And if it doesn't, then like we miss something, like a time of day or a hashtag or something random like that. But that's what sucks the most, is like when someone does something really cool and we want to share it and it doesn't work in the algorithm. That's what hurts me. Declan will spend a month and a half on a post that means a lot to us, and it gets 1,000 people to watch it. Very cool. And then we spend 20 seconds on something where he walks into the kitchen and looks at a Post-it note, and it gets 30,000 views, and that's what hurts ultimately.
100%.
We tried to do our best to like workshop something that's truly ourselves, and it didn't work, and we did something very minor and it worked.
From a branding side of things, like the Backpocket, do you guys typically agree on those things? Like from a strategy, like let's say you're pulling a clip, how often do you guys like, no, like one of you thinks, yes, this is a good one, and Andrew loves this, Declan doesn't. Do you guys have those? Or are you guys on the same page?
All the time.
All the time?
Yeah.
And that's productive, no? Like you guys, yeah.
Because he'll want to throw something knucklehead out there, and I want to do something serious, and we'll have to find the fine line all the time between them.
Yeah. And I think it's about, like, especially in a time like this, finding that balance. Like, not even, like, trying to, like, find how far you can go with a Corona joke anymore, because it's almost like those are irrelevant. But
I'm
it's like,
exhausted.
But it's almost like finding the balance of, like, that board is funny, but it's also, like, productive. Like, it has, like, actual takeaways of things that people can do. Like,
The board gets brought up.
like, one,
Every
don't
time,
panic.
yeah.
Like, that's legitimate. Like, don't panic. Like, seriously, like, don't panic. Like, just stay at home if you're not feeling well. You're gonna be fine. Now, like, then you go down a little bit. What does it say?
Call your grandparents.
Buy flight tickets for the summer. That
might not work
That's
anymore.
hey, look.
This was March
That
13th.
Yeah, that didn't age well. All right. And you know what also didn't age well? Number 6, have Corona-themed parties.
didn't age well.
Hey, guess what? Can't do that anymore.
I'll say it. Bad taste.
I'll tell you what, the number 1 fact we put up there, which I'm still saying it slaps to the 100th degree, dogs can't get coronavirus.
Oh my God. I'll say what. If I could not have interacted with my dogs during my quarantine,
Right.
would have been totally different.
Yeah. Oh God. So back to your point though, and what Andrew was talking about with like social interaction, like, and even with like podcast downloads, I've just totally taken that and just bundled it up and just thrown it out the window.
Right.
I just look at like the single point of we posted, because no matter what you do, that makes at least an impact of one person. And I know we always talk about this thing of like, oh, if you impact one person, it's great. It's like, dude, if I posted and it only impacted it only got one like, I would be kind of pissed. But at the same time, like, I'm looking at this thing of like, look, people are seeing this, but not necessarily engaging. And if they're seeing us from 5 different aspects, 5 different perspectives, and then also kind of 5 different pieces of content. Like, when you brought up earlier about TikTok, like, are you guys thinking of like, oh, that's a TikTok. Oh, that's a TikTok. Oh, that's a TikTok. Absolutely. Of course we're doing that, because that's what TikTok provides, right? When I think of something funny, I tweet it. When I capture an awesome moment of Andrew getting a haircut in our backyard, I post it on Instagram.
Right. And it'd be interesting to me to look at it from the perspective, like, let's say we all sat down separately and rewatched this podcast, like, for example, and see if we had to each pick one 30-second clip, whether it was something I said, Jack said, Andrew, Decky said, like, what would we each pick? Like, even even more specific, one thing I said or one thing Andrew said, if there'd be overlap in what we picked.
Yeah,
right.
The cash cow thing you went with, cash is king.
Yeah.
That's LinkedIn. LinkedIn will eat that up and you win all day long. We talk about something.
We talked about TikTok. That's probably good for TikTok.
Yeah. We talk about our moms being afraid. That's probably Instagram.
Right. It's because so what we're getting is just like
Instagram for sure. Duh.
Instagram for but there's just like this aspect of like there's different value that each thing provides. So like we already love what we're doing. Like we're wanting to post on all the platforms regardless because we see a bigger value. But then like the second part is what we're all just talking about. Like there's a different value for each platform. Just like give it a try.
But then again, I would also say like the me and Jack agreeing on the cash conversation. Like, yeah, LinkedIn would eat that up. But what I would argue then, like, people on LinkedIn have some idea of financial responsibility. Like, to me, it might not get as good of engagement, but the people that saw it on a TikTok, a 14 to 17-year-old, as they start getting their first job, thinking maybe instead of, doing this with my money, maybe I should hang on to some of it. Like, that's the way I look at it. Is like,
So then
I didn't look at it until you said LinkedIn, and I was like, yeah, that is a LinkedIn comment. But then in the back of my head, the other side was like, wait a minute. Who needs to hear that? Who needs to hear that? You should probably save some damn money for the next time nobody has jobs. Like,
hey, guess what? Don't need a 20-year-old telling me what to do with my money.
Yeah.
But if I'm 14 to 17-year-old, I might be interested. But that's the whole point. We had Luis Leonardo, the guy who started
Embrace North.
Yeah. So he talks about this concept of be the pink cow. And if you're driving on a freeway and you're driving by a bunch of fucking cows and you all of a sudden see a pink cow, you're going to turn and look and be like, holy shit, that's a pink cow. I want to take a picture of the pink cow. I want to take a selfie with the pink cow. What is that pink cow doing, right?
Yeah.
Be that in all of the different things that you do, right? So what you just described
is a pink cow.
Is a pink cow. Is posting the thing that makes sense on LinkedIn might actually do better on TikTok because it's more unique. Fucking pink cow.
Everyone's dancing. But who's telling you that your Amazon stocks can't buy you a loaf of bread on TikTok? but seriously, that's the way I think about it.
Dude, that's the shit that fucking just fires me up. Like I was writing the other
I
day.
love strategy thought. Like just
I
in
love
general,
it.
just like even on not even I don't want to call TikTok dumb, but like not that's not even what I like on simple things like that. Like seeing how some people are so successful and there's no strategy versus you guys can sit here and ideate things, and at the end of the day, it is down to the algorithm. Like I mean, that's how I look at it. It's just so fascinating to try different things, see what works, see what sticks, see what doesn't.
Right, and like if you're gonna do it every single day, there's a good chance, there's a better chance that you're gonna, quote unquote, go viral than if you questioned it and then just took it off because you're like, hey,
Yeah, go viral is so like uncool. You just gotta say there's a good chance you're just gonna go boom.
It's just gonna
Go
go
boom.
boom.
Like I told you, my tweet went boom.
It's like a fart in the
Boom.
wind.
Yeah, boom.
And it stunk. And it was kind of impressive. But it's gone.
Yeah, well, just
What are some fun things we could talk about? I feel like.
no. Hold on. There's just.
No
just
fun
one
yet.
thing.
No fun yet.
I
Becky
just love
decides
the
when we go fun.
Yeah. What's up?
This
Jack?
is fun, dude. Just
I like
like
your socks, by the way.
thank you.
Yeah, I realized afterwards how boring I am. I'm just murdered out over here.
You're
Just,
just.
Yeah,
I was
why-
going to ask you this in the beginning of the podcast. You went with the ninja look. You're just.
yeah, I mean,
all black,
samurai. You
just
should
black.
see me when I throw in the top knot. My hair's long enough.
Last time you wore like some pink shirt or pink.
Yeah, the no
sweatshirt.
problemo hoodie.
Right.
It's been retired.
Ooh,
Can we have
you
it?
burn it or what?
No, it's hanging up in the closet. It's just not part of the roto.
Right.
I've found myself rocking more neutral clothing.
You should donate or put it on Poshmark then.
Maybe.
Sign it.
Probably not. It looks
21st Corona
it-
victim.
But I think I don't
No
know.
problemo.
Jack, how long have we been going for?
Where does it say?
All right,
I
so
don't know.
I guess it doesn't matter. but
Scratch that. It's 7:15.
7:15. So about an
7:15,
hour
about
20.
An hour 20. So
Maybe
we
hour
may
30.
look, guys. We may have lost a couple listeners based off what we've already said this far. But if you're
Hour
if you-
32 minutes.
hour 32, so perfect.
Hour
Thank you,
32.
Jack.
So
You're
like,
welcome.
here's the thing: we never really care about this because like when my whole thing what I was getting back to, and I think what we've been talking about for a little bit here, is just the idea of like how fun it is to problem solve.
Yeah.
Whether it's just like you're in Corona and you're like, all right, I got to figure out like what my business straight up is gonna be.
Big
going
problems, little
forward.
problems, the process. And some people hate it.
I do, but I think you guys agree with me because we've been talking about it for so long. But like, man, it is just I just get so much enjoyment and fascination when I see a problem. I'm like, interesting. Like, okay, we have a problem.
Mhm.
Like, let's see how we can figure it out and solve.
And that's
it.
a very big difference. And I think that kind of ties into, like, in my mind, like people that thrive off of predictability versus, not knowing what's going to happen in 6 months. Like there's certain people that have had the same job for 30 years, same salary, and they like knowing what they're going to do knowing exactly what their daily tasks are going to be. And when a problem comes up, it shuts them down. They shut down internally. They don't know how to solve it without help. And there's other people like yourself, like I even like attempting, even if I can't come up with an answer, I love just like ruminating on a solution on big problems, fun things, like all the above. It's part of what I like to do.
right. And I just think it's I don't know. That was one thing I wrote down when I was just like we had me and the roommates had done a podcast. Just all the
The
roommates.
roommates and I.
Yeah, the roommates
President
and I.
Sullivan told you this on episode 6. The roommates and I.
The roommates and I.
Well, do you know how you know between me and I? You just go to the
No.
other subject, and if it makes sense without it. So, for example, like if you said the roommates and me, if the roommates weren't there and the sentence was just yourself, that's how you know. So, for example, me just filmed the podcast doesn't make sense, but roommates and I just filmed the podcast.
And
So,
never put me before the roommates.
oh my God, if you ever. Oh man.
And that's what you did. The roommates and I did something called the Roommate Quarantine Podcast. And what came out of that, Techie?
Proper grammar.
I'm so glad that we're audibly describing that to other people, right? Like, I actually did learn just something.
So,
new,
like, if the subject of the other subject besides yourself, me or I, is not there, that's if you get rid of it, does a sentence make sense properly if it's me or I? And that's how you know.
right. So wait, I was talking about it's just like
Problem solving.
problem solving
And the roommates
and
and
then
you.
roommates. Oh, okay. So one thing that we did with all the roommates and I.
Nailed it. Attaboy.
I don't know if
There he
that works
goes.
either.
There he goes.
Oh, fellas, help me out, dude.
Keep it going.
That's one thing about social media, dude. If you screw up grammatically, there's always someone to help.
Oh,
you
and
out.
that's got to be the most degrading thing. You put your time and effort into something, and somebody just hits you with like the different kind of word with the asterisk. Your. Oh man,
There.
you get drilled with that. Oh,
Yeah, right.
Hammer.
Talk about
it's on you though.
Yeah, whatever,
It
dude.
You gotta be better.
But we posted because we love it, regardless of the fucking grammatical errors, right?
Right, that's what we're boiling down to.
I think that's what we arrived at 40 fucking minutes ago. But anyways, what I was saying is like we were talking about like Jack Burke had actually brought up how like this was a moment or a podcast that he's like always been looking forward to because it was a time where we were all just going around the horn here talking about the shit that we all have on each other as roommates being with each other for the last
that
2
sounds
years.
so fun.
It was so fun. And I like went and chopped up the whole podcast, make it look nice because I was like, you know what, regardless of how many downloads or views this gets, like I'm excited for 29-year-old Declan
To listen
to go back and then watch a nice video and 1080p and like actually have a nicely produced podcast that we can all relate to. But even further, like actually listening to the feedback that I got, I just whipped out my journal and started just like writing down all the shit that like everybody around here was like writing, like, all right, Declan, like you gotta figure this shit out. Like you gotta
turn the oven off.
You gotta turn the oven off. Like Andrew had the perfect quote, which was like, you know, training Declan in as a person is it requires a lot of like what is it, discipline and encouragement. And we're not doing enough discipline.
Decky needs discipline.
Decky needs discipline, and that's exactly right. But I was writing all that stuff down. And it was just like so fascinating, like how much that actually sticks with me.
Have you guys enjoyed being quarantined together?
Oh my God, we've
when
had the best quarantine of all time. Jack, back me up on this. With this quarantine has been fucking grand slamming, dude.
I think we're having more fun than the average American.
Like, I gotta be honest with you, coming in here and like knowing all of you now, like over the past, like I'm jealous. Like I would way rather be living quarantined here. Like I'd way rather be part of the roommate squad than chilling at home with. I love my mom. My mom has been the best caretaker.
Yeah.
No shots at the mom, but I'd be having more fun if I was living here, easily.
Right.
Yeah. And it's bad to say that I don't feel guilty because I'm winning at the same time.
Right.
I get to be around
You
my
shouldn't
my
feel
boys
guilty.
all day long, and they get to do their work. They're making money. They're stable. I know they're healthy, and I get to sit along with them and see them win. And
Yeah, I'll say it. I'm jealous.
Yeah, but like again, back to my like outliers take about how like we are such a minute part of the world right now where we can say, dude, we are having a blast during COVID-19 quarantine times.
2020.
Right? Like we had so much fun that we made a poster about it. We're having so much fun that we're recording multiple
But you're also,
podcasts.
it's important to echo that you're being respectful to it. I mean, like you're not the people
Right,
that are going
we're
on
not-
vacations and planes. Like
sure.
you're making the best in a productive way of the situation. You're all working. You're all
Yeah.
hanging out. You're staying inside for the most part.
But to your point, like it might not be as relatable. Like someone there,
Oh,
all
absolutely.
of our parents, all kinds of people, I'm sure, are listening to this. Like fuck these guys. Like fuck these guys that they just invited a kid over with who just beat coronavirus, and like now we're sitting here talking about it and having just a rip roaring time like, as if it didn't matter.
Right,
you
and to an
know?
extent, like I'm very selective now of my interactions, and I'm sure somebody will have the attitude of I can't believe on both sides of it. You had him in your house, and me went to go there. I've had numerous people from all the departments of health tell me I'm fine. That doesn't mean I should go out and socially interact with the world. My uncle and grandpa, who are both been at HCMC for decades, have said all things point to being immune. Yes, be smart. But we're now, like, in a way, creating more awareness. Like, I mean, like, it's just like we're having a conversation. Somebody will listen to this and learn about my first symptoms, and now they'll share that with somebody else. I mean, like, and we're being respectful on nearly all of the guidelines. We're sitting far away from each other. I didn't go anywhere else before this. I mean, like, it is what it is. You got to make the best of it. We finned up, dude.
Yeah. And
it is what it is.
It is what it is. And then we eventually talked about TikTok for 30 minutes. And like, you know, you got COVID, you got people in villas in Italy with generations on generations sitting alongside each other that are struggling. And we're talking about TikTok. So, right. Yeah. People are looking at us, middle fingers in the air, fuck the back pocket. But and to your point, Jonah, we're trying our best to like, you know, we're trying to not look at it like we're fucking knuckleheads.
Right. And I can see what you're saying where somebody would have that attitude, but in my mind, you're not doing anything wrong. Like, I mean, like, you haven't made a disrespectful, distasteful comment about it. You found a way, like we talked about a little bit ago, like, to productively stay on brand and bring awareness to the topic and still have fun. Like, if somebody gets mad at you because you're in a situation where you are able to have fun, I mean, you can't get mad at somebody for, once again, whether it be financially preparing, being in a situation. I mean, sure, you can be envious, but envy is always there. But I think you can't get mad at you guys for having a good time. I mean,
No
come
way,
on now.
dude. No way.
We're starting to finally
Come around.
say to
that.
ourselves, it is what it is.
Do you think though, like, and again, going back to the idea that, like, I think we're all in agreement, like, who the hell cares about, you know, how we're perceived, right?
Yeah.
And I know we just talked about that, but, like, God, what an opportunity that we have to, like, not have to have any, like, front-facing adversity or front-facing worries in our life. That now, like, we're already thinking, like, 3 or 4 steps ahead of when the pandemic ends.
Yeah.
Like, we're in a very small, minute class of, like, problem solving to in a futuristic degree, and just, like, actively tracking it until we get there. Like, we're all 4 of us in this room are, like, you know, part of us is like, can't wait till this ends, but, like, okay, when it does end, how am I going to act?
How are we going to
When it does end, how am I going to thrive? When it does end, how are we going to capitalize? What is the ultimate need of this society when it does end? Like,
What does it look like for me winning to help as many other people win?
Exactly. Right. And that's what I'm most fascinated about. And that's why this time is so interesting, because, like, there's part of you that's documenting the journey, right? This podcast is documenting the journey. What is it like to have coronavirus symptoms? We talked about that for, 20 minutes already. You know, that it's so cool that we can now say that we had someone who had coronavirus, who defeated coronavirus, not to brag, on this podcast, right? Like, that's a cool thing. But, like,
And that's my point, is it's cool. We had fun and it's productive. We gave somebody some sort of
Yes,
substance
dude.
of, like, knowing the timeline, my interaction of what it was like. So, like, people have been hitting me up nonstop. What were your conversations like? How do you know you're clear? And it's like, I had no symptoms for a week. Like, I'm fine now. Just like anything else, I'm good.
And now you say, go to the back pocket, see what I said.
Yeah. There,
well, actually,
there
that's
it went.
That's a good point. And I actually kind of
there
want to
it
get
did.
your opinion on this, and you're obviously in this situation now. So, like, part of what Andrew and I do, right? Like, we are a production content factory. You come in here and you're gonna have eight or 9 or to 10 pieces of content that you can use and share for yourself.
And then you have one long form version of it. Yeah.
And you have one long form. It's
Yeah.
all basically funneling back to this very conversation. But from the perspective of you, like, my biggest question in my own head when I'm sending you links or sending you pictures or sending you videos, like, pretty much all I want to do is send you something that you love so much that you're willing to share.
And right, and I have no doubt that out of this, you'll find something that you guys like, and I'll probably like the same thing, because I know we think alike. And whether it was the clip that we had a conversation Jack and I had and agreeing on, conversation around financially being prepared, or something I talked about my symptoms, like, I have no doubt that there'll be something that
Right. I'm just trying to figure out, like, and I think it'll be.
Like, I don't even remember what I said, but, like, about the being financial. I'm sure it was a good. It was a great balance of you talking about, like, emotionally and, being prepared, and you being used to working remotely. I don't remember what you said, to be honest. Not too rude. It was great, though.
But it doesn't matter.
It was just
oh no, we'll probably cut it right there, right? Like, let's be real. We only have 40 seconds to really grasp the attention here.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, from our perspective, like, a lot of our growth is based on the person who's sitting on the couch that you're sitting on, right? And, like, a lot of the content that I put out is, like, yeah, we want it to be beneficial to Backpocket, but, like, Backpocket's not only us, but it's you.
100%.
So I'm always trying to figure out, like, what's beneficial to you. What do you love so much about this conversation that you're willing to share? Is it a picture? Is it a video? Is it this? Is it that? Because I'll tell you what, like, you reposting on your Instagram story is fucking sick. Like, that, I hope someone on our Instagram right now is tuning in live to watch Jonah talk about what he's been going through, right? Like, there's a genuine interaction there. But there's also another point of, like, how do we grab the people that love you, love Jonah, regardless of what you post, regardless of what you do? There's a certain percentage of people that love what you are doing, Backpocket is sharing what you love to do. I want some of those people to just come along with the ride.
It's a great
I like
question.
Jonah. Oh, I like Jack. Now I like Andrew. Now I want to maybe I'll listen to another one.
And it's almost like the progression of watching a TV show. You might watch a TV show because you like a character, and then as you go in, you like all the
start to
characters. Then you're like,
learn.
oh, I
Yeah.
don't just like that character. I like the storyline. Oh, I like the music, and it all is a journey.
Exactly. So you're
Yeah.
following what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
like
it's a great point.
Andrew and I, our biggest growth tool, right, are these genuine interactions. There's all kinds of strategy and stuff that we talked about behind the scenes
Yeah.
of like, how do we make Jonah look like this awesome dude who he is already, but like how do you promote him to the greater universe to get them to listen to your podcast? That's great, but I would much rather triple down on the 5% of those people that love
Right,
Jonah,
and it's almost
that
like
we can now loop in because we're all like-minded.
And I view it as equal value, like in the aspect of I'm on this podcast, somebody new will hear about me, and I come on the podcast, and for you, me reposting the story has value to you. But I see it as and in my eyes, I wouldn't do it if I didn't believe in the people, Declan and Andrew, in the podcast. I wouldn't have been here. There's probably amongst all the other medias, other people have hit me up. I'm not going to do something that I don't care about right now, especially. And on top of that, like I feel like in a way, from a friendship perspective, I owe it to you to repost it because I want to see you succeed.
Sure.
And I'm a platform, whether it's the Backpocket podcast, talking to Dr. Oz tomorrow, whatever that is, like I value it on the same level. Like you're giving me as a way bigger platform. In the time I've been here, we've been talking for an hour and 45 minutes. I mean, like somebody's going to hear of me that hadn't before. So I want to repay that by bringing some form of growth and engagement to you. So whether that's reposting it, tagging like I did, you said you were coming on a story, I took a screenshot and posted it on my Instagram story before this. Like those are little things to me, like to show gratitude in my way.
Right. And on top of that, it and I love that you brought up the Dr. Oz point because, you know, you're going to go on Dr. Oz, you're going to blow up, you're going to gain probably 1,000 followers. You're going to gain probably this, and you're going to get these impressions.
And
you're
I
gonna get this
don't know if
reach.
I want to be known as the Corona Kid is what I keep coming back to, and it's like
100%. You're a real human. Not a guy who
it is what it is.
But what you said like it goes so much further, right? Like people get to genuinely hear what's going on.
And that's why I'm here, because it's not only that, and it's just fun. Like we have a good time. Like
right.
Yeah.
And like that's what we're trying to scale, Andrew and I. Like literally that's what we're trying to scale is like Andrew and I are having a blast when if anybody who sits down that we're genuinely curious in and we're good friends with, the podcast is gold.
Yeah.
Like this is a gold podcast. We haven't asked a single question that's like, oh, we have to build this conversation. We got to fill time. Like, no, like
it's just
this is
random, but it's
this
good.
is us. It's us and it's good. Like anyone who's listening feels like they're sitting right next to you, Jonah.
Yeah.
And that's where we win. And so like I'm trying to figure out in my own head, like, how do I just continue to put that, like, obviously we're putting the podcast out, but like, how do I really make that look like something that like people are like, fuck yeah, dude, it's Joe Rogan, I'm in. Like it's this, I'm in. Like we don't have that credibility.
And I think it's about sharing those clips, the gold clips of whether it's snippets from the interview, because on one hand, Joe Rogan is, in my mind, successful for a few reasons. One, he's a phenomenal interviewer. You can't argue that he encourages conversation, he pushes back on people, but beyond that, part of his continued success and growth is he gets crazy people on. I mean, he has a 3-hour sit down with Elon Musk. He's the only person that has that. So to his advantage, it's that. But to you guys, you're having these authentic conversations, and by posting snippets of what you're talking about and really admitting to that being your goal, like publicly saying, we're simply trying to have these really cool conversations where you feel like you're a part of it. And whether that be a mixture of really sharing those clips and then figuring out, my only thing that I could think of on top of that was figuring out a way for it to be interactive, whether you start, not only a live show, but you have call-ins, like people, like a radio show more, like people are calling in, you bring up a topic, we talk about anything from coronavirus to a Netflix show and have people call in and make it more audience involved would be like an idea that
that's kind of what we're doing with the Zoom chat.
Well,
right.
And that's the overarching model of 2020. I mean, this attic space can only impact so many people, and you can only bring in so many people.
By the way, it's super dope up here. Go ahead
Yeah.
and say.
Thank you. What do you think about the finished woodwork? It's nice.
It's awesome, and I like that you kept the chairs. Nice touch. Love those chairs.
that couch may need a change, though.
Right. If we could find a couch.
How is it nearly the 2-hour mark? Are you sinking in a little bit?
I'm comfy. I run hot though. Like I'm hot right now. Are you guys hot? You guys
Do we
got
need
to
to take our
Yeah.
sweatshirts off or what's going on?
I don't wear t-shirts under sweatshirts. A little
Interesting.
Shit.
Interesting play.
Declan just looks
Shirts off podcast.
No, I'm always warm though. I mean, that's a fault of my own. I should have done the shorts and t-shirt look like Andrew.
Yeah, I'm here.
Right.
I'm here
Andrew
like I
hasn't
just
changed.
ran,
Andrew
cross
slept
country.
in those clothes last night.
Hey, come on.
Come
now.
on, dog.
Don't put them on. It's
That's not-
quarantine
and
life.
that's not a fucking slap, dude. That's just I wear that all the time. And if I was at home and I didn't have to wear pants, I'd be wearing that.
I looked at myself in the mirror this morning after I brushed my teeth and flossed and did a little
So he
Listerine.
brushed his teeth. Nothing else you can bash him for. He did the
I
necessities.
did the necessity.
So hop off, Deck.
But I did look at myself in the mirror while I was wearing the exact attire. I looked at myself after I slept in it. I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, "Carpe diem."
And then after that, he said, "Andrew, God, you look good." Right into his eyes, his own eyes.
Yeah,
Fuck
that
moment,
happened.
dude. It happened, dude. Straight up, man.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, what Deck and I are trying to do is bring this brand out to as many people as we can and have a good time with them. Whether we're talking about Bochella, live events, call-ins, whatever it is.
Yeah, I feel bad about my negativity towards Bochella. I should say, I hope it happens.
No.
I didn't get to be a part of it last year. I got your Facebook ads. I listened to that part of my last podcast. You guys targeted me. Andy ad spend over there got me with that one. I want to be a part of it, and the optimistic side of me hope things like that come back by summer. But like, who knows?
Yeah. Oh man, are we hitting the back end of the show?
I don't know. Wait, Johnny,
We're
you
at hour 51 right now.
Yeah.
sure, man.
Wow.
Johnny, you had
God.
brought up the gaudy task of you said so is there anything else fun to talk about? Like,
Have
did
you guys
have
watched?
anything in mind?
I was gonna ask the question again. What about have you guys watched Tiger King?
Yeah.
Home.
dude.
Have you watched it?
We watched
just
all of
watched
you?
it last
Yeah.
night.
All right,
all
on the,
together.
everybody on the count of 3, say yes or no if you think Carol killed her husband on the count of 3. All right, ready? Are we all ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. We're all on the same.
Yes.
And that's it for today's episode. 100%.
And that's the TikTok.
Most engaged I've ever been in a documentary series. Fascinating to me.
Hello, all you cool cats and kittens.
Well, that was pretty good.
That might have creeped me out more than the whole thing.
But to me,
I don't know why, but it hit me. It
The
hit me.
biggest shock to me was how unaware I was to all this. Like the stat that said there's more tigers in captivity in the U.S. than the rest of the world. That, and then how unaware I am to this whole topic, and yet these 3 people that they followed, it's the only thing they do. The only thing they do is care for these tigers, breed these tigers, trade these tigers, and it's their whole life. And I had never even really thought of or heard of tiger petting zoo.
This felt like the early 2000s, like 1990s. And I'm like, holy shit, this was 2016 to last year. I was
Yeah, the
like,
filming of it, the premise, how it's been filmed for 5 years and it wasn't even their intentions, really cool.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that aspect of storytelling. The point that you brought up, we had just watched the last episode last night, and
I want more.
I want more, right? But when you watch documentaries, there's usually always an intention on that last episode,
Yeah.
that last frame that you see. What are they? What is someone gonna actually leave you with? And what you said is there are 4,000 tigers in the wild right now. 5 to 10,000 of them are being sold and traded in the
Horrible.
United States. And you just watched an entire 7-part series on people willing to go to war to kill each other
Murder.
over fucking selling and trading tigers, meaning their bottom line. Say what you want to say and critique what I just said there, but oh my God, it's so brilliant to a certain degree, right? I hope to God there's a certain positivity aspect of there's plenty of people that saw that last scene and are like, fuck, we gotta save the tigers, but fuck, we can't save the tigers like these 2 idiots did it.
My question is, but a tiger in captivity can't go live in the wild. They're dependent on somebody providing food. They're by nature they're hunting animals, but I don't know if this is true, but am I right by saying if you took one of the 200 tigers that Mr. Joe Exotic has in Oklahoma and you just let them go into the wild in wherever they're from, wherever their origin of tigers from, would they survive? It's like if you put a goldfish in the lake, it can't hunt for itself because it's dependent on being fed food every day.
Right.
Is that natural instinct or is that trained instinct to hunt?
Right.
yeah, fuck if I know. And
Right? That's my thing. Is are those tigers even savable? Maybe they're relocated to a real facility that they're humanely. And that's the other thing is I don't know how humane one of those places was compared to the other one. So it's just like
Right. But
crazy show.
And the purpose of them doing that is what Deck's getting on. It's like they don't give a shit about that tiger and its inability to eventually adapt into its natural habitat. They could care less. But they are making that the Carol Baskins woman is making millions.
Buku money.
Number that I can't get my head around. And then Joe Exotic is bringing on people that are struggling throughout their whole life and as like the zookeepers and stuff and like actually giving them contributing society roles.
But I do think they care about the tigers in a weird way. Like I think that a lot of it's like you have to some extent to dedicate your life and to make as little as money as those people did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just baffled. Like I'd never even thought of tigers. Like
yeah, right. And I think there's a certain aspect, and I think this
Something
gets brought up.
Felines.
Right. And I think, and this is Decky Feline speaking on all of this. You know, like we're very up to speed. But what I'm saying is, there's kind of two sides to the coin here. There is the idea that there needs to be an awareness that there are only 4,000 tigers living in their natural
100%.
habitat. And the entire world can agree that a tiger should be where it should be. In the wild, in the jungle, hunting and killing shit and moving forward and living life, right? There's another aspect where it's like, man, is a tiger caged up? Will that be able to even survive in the wilderness?
and that's what I was getting at.
But like that conversation shouldn't even be had, to be honest, because think about like that tiger being kind of like the influencer for all his whole fucking like his whole species. Like this cute little tiger and me petting this tiger and feeling so good and taking this picture is actually beneficial for the tiger in the wild because people see that, they're like, that's amazing, I'm going to engage with it. We make money off the engagement. We take that money and we put it into the tigers that are actually living, right? I think the model is genius, but everybody's getting wrapped up in the publicity stunt. Joe Exotic runs for fucking governor. Carol they're going at war, and there's like, of course they went at war because they're both seeing so much benefit.
And at the end of the day, whatever they want to say, they're the same. They're doing the same thing. Whether it's a little bit inhumane, they're both owning tigers. But at the end of the day, out of all of this, like if nothing else, I can't remember a time where I was that entertained by like a short docuseries. Like I was like so engaged.
Right.
It's like the mixture of everything from the tigers to like the relationships, the whole Travis debacle towards the end of the series. Like you're watching, you're like, you've got to be shitting me. Like this can't. And the fact that it's all on film over the past 5 years, it's not like you didn't just hear about it. You saw every aspect of what they're talking about has been on camera for the last 5 years. Insane.
I cannot make that shit up.
You can't, and I don't even want to say anything because if somebody somehow still on at the 2 hour mark, I don't want to ruin it because if you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it. I tell everybody.
Well, and as crazy as you might think, there are definitely people tuning in right now.
Yeah,
like, I don't know how many people are on Instagram right now, and there's a couple of people on TikTok. Who this shit cares? Like it literally doesn't matter. But that's kind of thing that like Andrew and I, or Andrew specifically, when we were on another podcast, we're talking about. They're like, what's your biggest advice for like starting a podcast, right? And that's a question we get all the time. And Andrew's like, look at the podcast as a networking and just like growth tool rather than like a thing that's is another media platform like TikTok or Instagram. Right. Like look at it as a time where we can genuinely connect and have a great conversation. Like the three of us would be doing this over beers regardless. The fact that we can now record
that's the crazy thing
it,
is our conversation probably wouldn't have been that different.
No,
when I think about it,
but it's much more focused. Like we're not drinking beers, watching like a movie at the same time, or wanting to get food or anything. Like we are here because we are here to have conversation. Yeah, and the conversation's only going to be enhanced because we got these damn headphones on, we got these mics, where we got all these different things on, and it's just. It enhances everything, and I think that's just what makes this medium so unique, and that's why I'll never care about how many people listen or download.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah, love it.
It doesn't matter. I'm gonna finish it off with this last question.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta go to the bathroom. So
no, look, we're gonna finish the podcast off.
The whole podcast in general?
Yes.
Oh shit. Okay.
If you allow me to interrupt, I think going back to the question that you asked me earlier, just to kind of round everything that we've talked about out, you asked me like, what do I think the biggest impact of the coronavirus is going to be? Because in my opinion, we talked about the coronavirus. We've talked about your symptoms of the coronavirus. We talked about the business implications from the coronavirus. And then we got on social media. And then Tiger King. But the interacting thing in all of this is like, how about the paradox in social media and the paradox in the way we've interacted and will continue to interact in the future? Like, everyone already knows all the negatives of social media, and you brought up all the positives. And going forward now in this new age, this new normal for all of us, social media is the most important thing we have right now.
Oh,
and
100%.
And will
I think
be
it's
going
even.
forward.
I think it's social media and like social networking, like.
Yep, and sharing content,
100%.
sharing this podcast.
People have to be entertained right now, and whether it's a 30-second TikTok clip or binge watching Tiger King, like you said, I mean, like it's the most important thing we have is like the mainstay of social connection, whether it's through our phones, webcams, or sharing a conversation over something we've all watched. I think that there's just so many different ways, and I love that you kind of brought that up. It's a great little round out.
It's just really good production
Attaboy,
and
Jack.
producer move on your end, Jack. That was just phenomenal. But
And hey, the whole thing that I've been toying around with, it starts with you sharing. At the end of the day, whether you're your mom or your brother, your best friend, as long as they're sharing or they're capturing what's going on, there's value there. There's internal value. There's external value. There's a win-win situation. Jack, you did a great job of making my thoughts actually sound intelligent with that word paradox. I was like, damn.
It's a 3-point word right
It's a
there.
3-point word
There
that
you
wins and words with friends that I've been playing a ton lately. I was going to ask the last question, what did you learn today?
absolutely.
Because Jonah came in and he hammered home the average quality and what's in your back pocket. And our podcast, I believe it's like, shooting out of a cannon here, 204?
What?
His podcast that we did over the summer.
Oh yeah, probably in the 200.
What are we on now?
This is
250.
250. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Not to make you a number, but you at least have two
Just to-
numbers
just
within the multiple of numbers.
I love it.
Mhm.
Happy to be a number.
To finish the podcast off with this final question, Jonah, what did you learn today from the moment that you woke up to when we're having this conversation?
I think that it's about I learned a few things. One would be that it's okay to be having a good time right now. I think that like you've, in a way, it sounds like you almost were like backpedaling to feel guilty that you guys have had a great quarantine, which I think that's an amazing thing that you've been able to figure that out. I think it's about finding a way to stay positive in a negative time, figuring out what you're looking forward to, whether it's something tomorrow, in a week, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, a year, whatever it is, just figuring out something like that. And that I think the biggest thing I've learned today and throughout all of this is that it's unprecedented times. No one has the answers yet. No one knows what 3 weeks from now holds, but I think we all can agree that we will get past this and whatever that looks like, and things will either return to normal or a new normal, and everything will be all right. And it's okay that we're going through this because we're going through it together, and everything will be okay. That was really cliche, but it's almost like
No, but I think dovetailing off
said,
that,
yeah.
like, and definitely need to be said. And I think like dovetailing off like what I have learned is, this will come to an end. It's what you take from this time that will make you successful in the next part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's a negative time. It's an uncomfortable situation. But what can you learn? What can you grasp? What can you put in your back pocket to then excel and use when we're actually out of the situation?
boom.
What'd you learn, Andrew?
I learned that, Jonah, to call you a friend and to get to know you from June or whatever when we had the conversation to not having another interaction till January this year when we're going to Embrace North and stuff like that. Like, it's just a constant reminder that the back pocket has opened me up to people that I haven't, that I would not be able to reach prior. And now that I have that opportunity, I love being able to sit down and just share each other's stories and learn from each other and just be an honest person. And that's when we all get to win together. I think it's killer that we all got to speak on this Corona thing, from you actually having it to ways to handle it in your own community, to talking about fucking social media, to Tiger King, and the way Jack phrased it was awesome. It's just a really cool thing that we were able to share 2 hours together and now get to release it, and hopefully someone else can take something away from it.
I'm always honored to be a part of it. Such a blast.
Mm-hmm.
God bless.
More fun this time than the last time. Now that we're boys.
Well, I think it, like, for anyone listening, like, I think it'd be absolutely hysterical to go back and listen to the
I was so much
conversation.
more
Yeah.
tactical. Like
you were so
It's an interview.
Yeah,
It was an interview, like-
Tech and I looked at each other. Like he thought that was an interview the whole time.
yeah, well, I did. I treated it as an interview because I didn't know either one of you. I'd heard about you guys. I was like, I treat everything with as legitimate as the next one. So I was like, yeah, but now I'm here chilling with my boys.
Yeah,
But like, how cool is that? Like that 8 months in between, like how much different things have happened, how much we've grown together, like and how much of that makes an impact, in every aspect. I think that's just amazing.
I love it all
Yeah,
of it.
That's just life though, man. That's just life, and hell of a fucking podcast, man.
Cheers.
God bless.
that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Take care, guys.